Good morning. I look different today. You probably do too. We're into the new year. Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, January 9th, 2020, and it's cold. Speaking of 20, it's 21 degrees. Now we're going to get up to 32 today, and we've got some surprises for you in terms of heat after you go through this cold snap. Just one day of cold snap again on Thursday, January 9th, 2020. You're listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, the train station. At the train station, you can listen live on RadioWestchester.com. You can go to MyTuner Radio and put the app on your Bluetooth. We're available on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, iTunes, and soon to be on Spotify. A lot of news today. Let's get to some of the headlines. The House to vote on restraining President Trump's actions against Iran, although that situation seems to be de-escalating. A Mount Vernon School resource officer in the Army gets a warm farewell from students. Greenburgh town officials plan to fund safety enhancements after several pedestrian-related incidents in that town. And in some other local news in Rye, the village is trying to thwart future hackers. We had Cuomo give his State of the State speech yesterday, and it was noteworthy for what he didn't talk about. And of course, in sports, everyone's talking about the new coach, Mr. Judge. Stay with us. First, as always, we go to the why do I say traffic? We go to the weather. And the weather is what the weather is. Now, this is worth the news itself. Mostly sunny today, but cold, an average of 32 degrees. Tonight, increasing clouds, okay? A low of 26, but then things begin to change, and change rapidly, they do. Tomorrow, some sprinkles getting up to 48 during the day, 45 during the night, and then as we go into Saturday, a little cloudy, but temperatures will get up to 60 degrees. Now, are you ready? Are you sitting there? Or standing, or still lying in bed? 62 degrees on Sunday, and I've rarely done this job where I've given you a temperature here in Lower Westchester, where we're right by the water and all. It's always more than what it says. So right now, the scheduled forecast for Sunday is 62. Go to the beach, go to the park, whatever it is one does. Let's get to, and this was unusual for News 12. Our friends at News 12 made this the top story, only because I suspect that people are worried about war. But the House will vote today, that is the Congress of the United States will vote today on measuring limiting President Donald Trump's ability to take military action against Iran. Now, almost every legislature, Democrat and Republican, has tried to restrict the power of the president when it comes to making war, but yet without a declaration of war. We've had several wars since World War II without a declaration. So why they're wasting their breath is anyone's guess. But so far, so good. And we'll get back to that story. It is obviously a top story around the world. The Iranians making a very calculated strike that sent a minimal message, or at least some message, but hurt no one, and thus was a stopgap. It did not escalate tensions, and the president appears to be acting in kind, but also saying that Iran will not get nukes ever. In Mount Vernon, a school resource officer there got a warm farewell from students yesterday. That's because he's off to war, or at least getting off to the Army, and a nice thing done by those young people. Now, in Greenburgh, town officials there plan to fund safety enhancements after several pedestrians had accidents. And the Greenburgh town officials say they're calling for safety enhancements for the roads, for the highways, for speed, sidewalks, and so forth. So we will see that coming to that town. Similarly, although in this case not physical problems, in Loha today, Iranian cyber attacks won't be a problem, says the village of Rye Brook, or against their infrastructure, thanks to an elegant solution the village used since it got hacked in 2013. The hackers got into the control system of the Bauman Avenue Dam in the village of Rye Brook, but by 2016, the Justice Department had charged 7 Iranians, as you know. Well, now politicians heralded the start of cyber war and the need to combat that future threat. And Governor Andrew Cuomo said the attacks are serious and demonstrate a commitment, but nonetheless, the village has put in the right enhancements and thus doesn't expect any problems. Now, Albany yesterday was the site of the governor's latest State of the State speech, and what this speech was noteworthy for was what he didn't say. Summaries and LOHUD, and we have some details we'll get to later, but summaries and LOHUD, all of the major papers, News 12, pretty much boils down to this. Governor Cuomo touched on dozens of proposals in his State of the State address on Wednesday, but didn't spare a single breath discussing tweaks to New York's criminal justice overhauls. And we've been talking about this for days, as has every news outlet and concerned citizen. Nonetheless, the glaring omission came despite Cuomo's concession earlier in the week that the brand new bail reform law is indeed of changes. The blind spot in an otherwise kitchen sink hour-plus presentation in Albany flummoxed political politicians on both sides of the aisle. It was a dereliction, said Mark Molinaro, the Dutchess County executive, who in 2018 was the GOP challenger against Cuomo. He should have acknowledged, and I'm surprised he didn't. Bail reform, part of the large criminal justice package that became law in New York on New Year's Day, bars judges from imposing bail as a condition of release for suspects in most misdemeanors and select felonies. Within a week of the implementation of the reform, says a piece in the New York Post, state Republicans, moderate Democrats, and even Mayor de Blasio called for them to be scaled back. So that it was a story where, wow, why didn't he talk about it? And that became the feature of last night's speech. Now, this is a man who's generally very politically inclined and adept, but he seems to be tone deaf, or at least just didn't want to admit a mistake in public. They never do they? Now, Governor Cuomo also threw down the gauntlet in a bid to close the state's yawning $6 billion deficit, suggesting that New York City and other local governments cough up their fair share for a massive Medicaid bill. The situation is unsustainable, the governor said in his annual State of the State speech. At the heart of the fiscal hole are the exploding costs of the state's $77 billion Medicaid program for the needy, which are meant to split or be split among federal, state, and local governments. In order to help governments abide by a state-imposed 2% property tax cap, the governor and the legislature agreed 6 years ago to foot the added costs. And, well, I've talked with enough elected officials. Now, what they say to you on the air and in public and what they say to people like me off the air are generally two different things. Some are very straightforward about it, such as the city manager here in New Rochelle. The 2% tax cap is a canard. It's political. And sooner or later, that is a phony thing that was going to come home to roost. Took a while. But now you've got a $6 million budget hole. Gee, how did this happen? And a state that has some rather odd Medicaid arrangements. How did this happen? It shouldn't be a surprise. Now, some of the other things that came out of his speech last night: support for recreational marijuana, borrowing $3 billion to pay for environmental projects, making elected officials' tax returns public. Well, how much of this is because he really wanted to do it, and how much of it is to try and still force President Trump to show his? I don't think, for those of you who weren't born, 2 days ago, I think that one's easy to figure out. Again, no mention of bail reform for a small business tax cut. We can all use that. And again, how will we pay for it? That remains to be seen. A couple of other items there. Fighting back against hate crimes. That's politically fashionable. You would think he would have looked at how politically fashionable. I mean, we all want to fight against hate crimes. But this is, once again, to quote the former COO, if you will, the assistant to President Obama. He once said, don't take advantage, never forget to take advantage of a crisis. And here are the Democrats doing just that, fighting back against hate crimes. We do and we will, Governor, don't you worry about that. Education funding, of course, was there. No real surprises. Although one pleasant surprise is an item in the news before we move on to other subjects. A year-long price correction in home prices and a decrease in mortgage rates in Westchester County made for an unusually active fourth quarter, despite the tax changes whereby you can only declare $10,000 of your taxes, local taxes. According to an end-of-the-year market report from brokerage firm Houlihan Lawrence, single-family home sales in Westchester increased gradually in 2019, while overall sales decreased slightly when compared with 2018. That's always, although one of the industry sources comes out instead of a news source, remember, they're trying to tickle interest. Don't be fooled. They're trying to tickle interest in your, if you're interested in buying a house, they're trying to put that in your consciousness. No harm, no foul. But we're just giving you the caveat emptor part that they will not. Alrighty, we have to take another look at the weather. Remember, the weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in town. Visit uhgc.com. And if you're just joining us at the 6:15 mark, we give our first one. Every 15 minutes, we try and update you later in the program every 30. It's Weird Weather Day, or at least the precipice of that. It is 21 degrees. Brrr, it was cold. The wind really whacked things around last night. Not as bad as they expected, but anyway, it's 32 now. It's breezy, but the winds aren't crazy. Mostly sunny today, cold, an average of 32 degrees. Tonight, increasing clouds. Still going to be cold, getting down to 26, but things begin to change tomorrow. You'll see a few sprinkles here and there. This is Friday. During the day, it's going to get up to 48, a balmy 48. At night, 45. Now, here we go. Short sleeve time. Saturday, it'll be cloudy. We'll get up to 60. Now, Sunday, there'll be some early rain, but it won't cool things off. Things are going to get up to 62 or so. So you have been told, and then at night, getting down to 35 as things begin to get back to normal. The bottom of the hour, the program was brought to you by the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Also, Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena and Kahn, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and Dominic Cigars. We went to visit them yesterday because it looks like we'll be doing a Super Bowl special from Dominic's Fine Cigars, a well-reputed, long-term establishment over in Larchmont. Just what a great place. It was in there. And now, I'm not a cigar smoker because I was a cigarette addict, but what a nice place to sit down and watch a game or chit-chat with your buddies. More to come about that. We do want to take a look at sports. One of the things that's fascinating is many people are saying, wow, what a great selection. That is the new coach for the Giants. Joe Judge, how he capitulated from long shot candidate to the main choice. Now, of course, the Giants are saying, well, we had this guy all along, but once again, while he seems to have a great one, the more we read about him, the greater we realize his background is and how he came up and how very detail-oriented. And so he seems to be a fine choice. I don't know. Sometimes I think coaches in sports are overrated, but again, the evidence isn't that, is it? When we see Belichick and people of that ilk. But nonetheless, what can also be said is the Giants had all of these top candidates and somehow got beat to the punch on every single one. That is not how an iconic football franchise generally works. But sometimes, you back into a miracle. We all remember when Joe Torre was selected by the Yankees, and everyone scratched their head because Steinbrenner, the late George Steinbrenner, was always going to the best and the brightest and the most iconic. And here he went with a guy who had a record as a mediocre manager, even though he was a Hall of Fame baseball player. And he turned out to guarantee his place in the Hall of Fame, of all places, as a manager. So you never know. We ought to cut them some slack. But still, it is quite the story. And a lot of questions being asked today about the Giants brain trust. Again, Gettleman on the hot seat That seems like a move they should have made, at least when we talk to most football fans. And today we will be doing that. But Poliquin's going to be with us at 9 o'clock, national sports reporter, and we'll get his take on that. Now, for his part, Rule said there was no doubt he was going to take the Panthers job. Who can you believe in this wonderful sport? Everyone's turned into Cespedes, or so it seems. A couple of other items as we thumb through the sports today. The Knicks lost last night to the Jazz by a score of 128 to 104. Things are getting back to normal there. And let's see what else we got. Oh, yes, today is the 40th anniversary of the miracle on ice when the United States Olympic team defeated the Russians and to move on to win the gold medal. One of the most iconic moments and happy moments in sports. No question about that. And also celebrated in the paper, if you want to pick up the New York Post today, you might want to. Best sports section, we will say that unequivocally, on the planet for a local paper. The famous call by Al Michaels, I do not believe what I have just seen. So there'll be a lot of stories, probably movies. You won't want to miss that. And tonight, the Rangers are back at it again. They're locals. The Devils will be back in the Garden, and they will try and tighten up the D and make life a little easier for their goalies now that they have three of them. It's not clear if their rookie, Saskarin, will be in the nets tonight or not. And I know I have to pronounce this. It's Saskarin will be in the nets tonight. He had a shaky start in the first few minutes of his NHL debut. He's supposed to be a great one, by the way, but then he settled down. So we shall see where that goes. And don't forget tomorrow, the road to the Super Bowl, and Jake's picks will look at where we are headed and some of the teams that are there. In the AFC, you've got the Titans, the Ravens, the Texans, and the Chiefs. In the national round, we've got the Vikings, the 49ers, the Seahawks, and the Packers. And by the way, what's Brady doing? He says he has more to prove. He didn't say necessarily that it's going to be with New England, but nonetheless, he is talking about staying in the game. So the more we hear about that, the more we will share with you. It is 6:36. Let's get to some of the national stories and other local stories that we know you care about. Justin Bieber announced that he has Lyme disease. Wow, I don't know if I'm going to be able to function now that I know that, but that is a nasty disease and it can last for years, decades. So we wish him well. Meanwhile, Rabbi Chaim Rottenberg spoke in front of his residents yesterday in Monsey, and he thanked the community and people outside the community for the support. And indeed, they had things to say yesterday as well and were present at the governor's State of the State speech. Someone else says, there's so many people vying for Nita Lowey's open seat, we're going to have to assign numbers, uniforms, and put names on the back of their jerseys. Now former federal prosecutor Adam Schaefer vies for Representative Lowey's seat. It's in LoHUD today. Still the latest. So state lawmakers, I moved too quickly. Yesterday, two men are being called heroes for saving a baby and a man from a pit bull attack in Rockland County. I was involved in one of those once. We'll share that story with you one of these days, or eventually. Now, something we just saw coming across, and this didn't make the early reports, and it's not even on the website, but we have some stirrings out of the school district here in New Rochelle that a student may be complaining about a sexual harassment attack or more. It's not clear. This we can tell you firmly. It's not clear whether the complaint's about another student or about a teacher, but as soon as we know more, so too will you. Now, on a national level, and we know you love your national news, it is once again, it is 6:38, only 21 degrees, but remember, by tomorrow or by Saturday, it's getting up to 60, so you have something to look forward to. President Trump moved to de-escalate hostilities with Iran, signaling on Wednesday no new U.S. military strikes following an Iranian missile barrage on Iraqi bases. housing American and allied military forces. That resulted in no casualties. He said, and I quote the president here, Iran appears to be standing down, unquote. He said this in a televised address, and he went on to say, hours after he spoke, the news reports rather, that Iraqi security officials said 2 rockets landed in Baghdad's green zone where the U.S. Embassy and other diplomatic missions are located. This is clearly an attempt to save face, but also show that that is Iran does not want an escalation leading to a more general war. And the stock markets reacted to that as well yesterday. That we will get to. Now, it was a coincidence, and I'm still voting inclined to believe it was a coincidence, but nonetheless, the investigation into what caused the Ukraine International Airlines jetliner to crash shortly after takeoff on Wednesday, killing all 176 passengers and crew, faces complications amid tensions between U.S. and Iran, because 737, it's an 800, it's not the MAX. It is as reliable plane as you will ever fly in your life. There are thousands and thousands of them, and they don't crash, and they're made well. And one of the few times I was inclined to greatly disagree with Harlan Ullman yesterday, I probably follow planes a lot more than he does. We'll leave politics to him. And if you train properly in the 737 and you are not just trained like a gamer on a simulator, and you follow the rules and you follow the methods of maintenance, these planes don't crash. You got a better chance of slipping in your tub, of dying in a 737. And when you see these crashes, you don't see them in American Airlines. You don't see them in all the other iconic carriers here, Southwest, Delta, et cetera. You just don't. I mean, if it happens once every 10 years now. But when it comes to flying to carriers in the Middle East, when it comes to carriers, I'm not talking about the big ones, Emirates and United Emirates. I'm not talking about Air China. I'm talking about the Indonesian places, Africa, South America. They just don't have the rigor and the regulations that we do, and the professionalism of their pilots. Look at the airtime. They've got people with 1,000 hours or 300 hours or 600 hours flying these things. United States, you see the captains with 10,000 hours and 5,000 hours if they're a co-pilot. So I stand by my little debate with Harlan yesterday, but more importantly, it's not to say that something didn't go wrong with the plane, but it's very unlikely. Nonetheless, determining what went wrong is critical to the maker of 737-800 single-aisle jets, Boeing company, which already is dealing with the grounding of its best-selling MAX fleet. Boeing is upset with the crashes, but of course it has to look into it, but with all the tension, it's very difficult to do. Now, in a typical crash probe, Boeing, GE, and U.S. transportation investigation agencies would be gaining access. They have not yet. So we shall see. Let's look at some financial news, and there is business and finance. Grubhub, you've been using it lately? Well, Grubhub is considering strategic options, including a possible sale amid increased competition and a recent decline in the food delivery providers' shares. Why is that happening? Lots of competition. Everybody delivers now. In fact, you walk into some restaurants, they're half empty, and you say, how do you make money? Deliveries. Everybody delivers. Everybody's got a little sign on the top of the car, and they'll run out with Joe's Hamburgers at this point. But that's the American way. That's our system. That's competition. That's a good thing. Macy's plans to shut nearly 30 stores and said sales fell during the holiday months, but the drop wasn't as sharp as investors feared. But nonetheless, Macy's is scaling back. Now, as we suggested earlier, U.S. stocks gained with the Dow and S&P 500 adding 0.6% and 0.5%. It looks like the throttling back of tensions between the United States and Iran is bearing some fruit with regard to the stock market. The SEC is taking steps to loosen the control that big U.S. exchanges exert over the flow of real-time stock prices to the public, and that is a good thing. We'll get a little more, just a little more transparency in those prices. Morningstar, known for its mutual fund ratings, has hit a tough patch in its quest to become a big player in the bond rating business, and such has always been the case. Pricing funds is an art. Pricing bonds is a little different case, and you need different information and different regulations. Walgreens said earnings fell 25% amid increased competition and shrinking profits in its prescription drugs. So that's where we were and are today with business news. Now, worldwide, a growing number of Senate Democrats are calling for Pelosi to send over the articles of impeachment, saying the party had little to gain from further delay. As you know, she's holding off, trying to get yet more witnesses, particularly John Bolton, to appear at the Senate trial. But the Senate does now have the votes, because it's led by a majority of Republicans, to just go forward once those articles are filed. So they're at a stalemate. Someone has to blink. Even some Democrats are saying Pelosi should blink. But perhaps what the Democrats need to do now is cut some sort of a deal that gets Mr. Bolton to testify in the Congress, because at least it will eliminate, and that's their intent. I mean, it's all political now, because the Republicans are not going to remove the president. But at least they can get on the record the fact that he knows that is Mr. Bolton, that the president did what he did, and eliminate that last plausible deniability by the president and his backers that he did not do what he's accused of doing. He did it. It's obvious to all except those that are completely partisan, but it's also fair to say it's pretty much clear to most, too, that he will not be removed from office. So let's just get it all out there and done. Bolton should go to the Congress and testify if he's really sincere. All right. A judge voiced skepticism of a Trump order that gives state and local governments the ability to object to refugee resettlement within their borders. And Chinese scientists are investigating a mystery illness that has sickened dozens in central China with a new strain of virus. So that's something you can take a look at. We're going to open up the phones in a few minutes, but I did want to go over the lineup today, and I did want to talk a little bit about this issue that the governor, it's almost fantastic that he avoided the number one issue that everybody's talking about in his state, and that is the failed bail policy. But first, the lineup for today. Vince will be joining us at 7:20. We're going to open up the phones in a few minutes, between now and 7:20. We will do that. Mayor Noel Bramson will have his first visit of the year with us. We moved him off Monday's calendar onto today. John Bailey from White Plains, our reporter in White Plains, joins us at 7:50. Al Tarantino, who couldn't make it with us yesterday because of some phone issues, will be with us today. Your city councilman from District 2 here in New Rochelle. Andy Spano joins us at 8:35. And then heading into this final, I guess it's 8 or 4, if you will, final 8 rather, leading into the playoffs this weekend. We will talk with Bud Poliquin, and we'll be talking a lot of football at 9 o'clock, but also some hockey with him, baseball, and Hall of Fame questions. So we have a lot to discuss. Quick break now. Alrighty, welcome back. It is But about 6:48 in the morning on Thursday, January 9th, 2020. Who can believe it's 2020? I used to think that was such a futuristic date, and now here we are. Heck, I remember in 1969 looking at a billboard in a Manhattan train station at the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey and saying, will I be alive then? And now that is 20 years ago. Go figure. It's cold. It's 21 degrees. It will get up to 32 today. But as we've said twice already, and we'll mention at the top of the hour, it's going to be cold today shortly, or that is eventually warming up tomorrow as we get into Saturday, where it will be 60 degrees, and Sunday 62. Just a couple of other stories just coming in. These from Lohad. A spokesman for County Executive George Latimer wrote a draft statement saying he wanted to kill the deal before a public announcement because they wanted out of the deal even before they said so. Now, Yonkers is finally fighting back. You know, this whole issue with New York City sending their homeless here to Westchester, to towns like Mount Vernon, Yonkers, of course, and White Plains and elsewhere. Yonkers is saying we don't want that to happen here. So if you've got homeless, you keep them in New York. And that's a position that he took. And just today, when I came into work this morning, there was an ambulance, and here at the train station, we are the station at the station, there was an ambulance and fire trucks and everything else. And the issue when I did my reporting before I walked into the studio was that there were some homeless people who didn't want to move, and one of the techniques, I guess, that gets done, because they go into the train station to get warm, obviously. It's the insides. We're not inside the train station as such. We're attached to the end of it in a separate studio. So we go in there, and it turns out that what one does when they're asked to move because they can't be loitering in there is that they're sick, and so an ambulance gets called. So all's well, ends well, except we have a homeless problem here in Westchester. Indeed, the country does. That needs to be addressed. And it needs to be addressed from the standpoint of mental illness. It needs to be addressed from the standpoint of drug abuse. And it needs to be addressed in terms of affordable housing. That's a problem that will be with us for a great long time, I'm afraid. But one can only hope that we will find ways to ameliorate the problem. A $3 million bond to tackle environmental issues. Will you be voting for that? Because there will be a referendum at some point to spend that kind of money. Now, let me see if we have anything else. No, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit before we move on. It is absolutely troubling that the governor yesterday did not bring up bail reform. And we're almost getting long in the tooth in complaining about it here on Radio Westchester and elsewhere. It failed. And what's good about it is that it unequivocally failed early. And as the term goes, early and somewhat often. And that just happens sometimes. Remember a new Coke? That failed early and often. There's nothing wrong with giving judges discrimination. But what appears to be the case, and we're going to give the governor a little, not a lot, a little bit of slack on this. The way our political system now works, and this is why we have Trump, and this is also why we have here in Westchester only Democrats on the other side of the fence, is that politicians take a good hard look at what the base is. And the base may be wrong-headed, but if the base is large enough, they become embraced. It's not for nothing, and this is, I'm not asking you to forgive the president for this, only understand his behavior, that when those people were marching in Charlottesville, they were just wrong-headed, they were sick. But nonetheless, they were part of his brace. So he was kind of equivocal. Yeah, well, there were wonderful people there, too. Well, everybody has their own way of saying there are wonderful people there, too. And Cuomo not coming out hard on the failure of this policy was saying the same thing. That the people on the far left, who tend now, unfortunately, to view everything through this prism of white supremacy, as opposed to white privilege, very different things. To know that these are bills, these are laws, these new laws that are based on the absolute black and white view, and that's not a pun, that's not racial, this our way or no way view of the far left, as we had to worry about in our schools here in New Rochelle and elsewhere. We've got to go with them, otherwise we can't stay in office. Well, once again, we opened the door for moderation. Now, the Sam Party started to get involved back in the last election. Didn't make much of a dent. You need a lot of money to get out there and make yourself known. Certainly, you need the kind of money that the former mayor of New York, Michael Bloomberg, is spending to get known, coming in from the side, if you will, almost as an independent. But something's got to give. We cannot allow the people on the right who probably do believe that if the president shot someone in Fifth Avenue, it would be okay, or the people on the left to disavow logic and make everything into race and privilege and history rewriting and political correctness in the extreme. We cannot allow either of those sides to continue to dominate U.S. politics. Now, I don't pretend to know how to do it. And even when we get political scientists on the show, they always give, the best of them always give the default answer, well, that's politics. And what I like to do is add the word, so what you're saying is lying and take advantage of our ignorance is politics. And they always stop short of saying yes, but it's true. I don't know where to go. I'm leaving it to you. 914-222-3141. What can we do? Now, I keep kidding, only half kidding, about having this middle class strike come April, where those of us in the middle, I don't know if I'm there anymore, but those of us in the middle class or the upper working class or the scraping by on our fingernails, what can we do to say enough? What can families do to say, if you can't keep my school safe, we'll continue to push hard for charter schools, which is what people can do. But again, people don't have the time to grind these political axes. But we've got to do something. And here again, the governor embarrassed himself. Not again as in his case, but here people, and rightly so, I think, depending on their point of view, they go after the president for his embrace of his extremists. And we don't go after the Democrats enough for their embrace of their extremism at all. You know, extremism is killing the planet, and now it's beginning to kill us. So one can only hope. That's what's going on this day, January 9th, 2020, 914-222-3141, 914-222-3141. Tomorrow we have our usual lineup of Friday guests, with one exception. We're going to be talking with Damon Jones. He's the publisher of Black Westchester magazine at 9 o'clock. One of the reasons we're bringing him in is in the hopes of moving from extremism on all sides. We're trying to create still more dialogue, more honest dialogue. And when I talk about honest dialogue, I'm talking about the freedom to disagree, the freedom to not understand the other party, the freedom to try and understand where they're coming from. For example, I've often invited, and I need to get the heads of it, I'd like to get New Rule on the program. I'd like to get Indivisible Westchester on the program. Particularly Indivisible Westchester and the people that pushed for things that are important to women, the people that pushed for women's right to choose, the people that are concerned about racism and hate crimes, the people that want everyone to get an equal opportunity. All that is wonderful stuff. But somehow it has become, well, the only way to get that is to embrace our way or no way points of view. I'd like to find out what is driving that thought. You know, I remember when I began to question, I was never a hippie. I was always this reasonable kid, even back during the political days of the 60s. I wasn't a war protester, and it took me a while before I was I rejected the war. And I never did fully because I've always had this mixed, and it came out yesterday in a conversation that I had with Harlan Ullman about loyalty. I was a big John Dean fan, by the way, where I am incredibly American to the point of being perhaps un-American, as I believe greatly in individuality, but with responsible towards the whole. And I've always said that where's the line? If we are citizens of America and we join the Army, or our leadership calls on us to defend the country, that however fearful we might be, we have a duty to do so. And so I was always reluctant to be a total anti-war person. And I to this day, I still wrestle with that. Had I thought, and I actually did, that the president went too far, perhaps, I'm not sure yet, but had I thought the president went too far in the killing of Soleimani, should I then say, had there been a draft to my beloved grandson, I don't want you to go, I want you to go to Canada because the president made a mistake. I'm just saying he did, but assuming that I felt that. The president's doing stuff for his own political benefit, he's not doing it for you, as became the case in Vietnam. Would I want him to go? Absolutely not. I think that one of the problems that politicians have on all sides, because of the nature of what they do, so do big businessmen and women, the rest of us become abstractions, players on a chessboard. They couldn't do their job if we didn't, on one hand, but on the other, they become desensitized to it. It should be sacred when you send people off to die, but it's not. They say it and they do all the right things, but at the end of the day, if a few million American lives have to die, well, we're a different class than them. I don't know if I could send my grandson. Anyway, here's the point that I'm getting at. The fight between one's individual conscience and the ability to be loyal for a person of thoughtfulness is always a great fight. And where I was surprised yesterday in my conversation with Harlan, but then I realized Harlan was in the military, is even though, and we were talking all the way back about Watergate, even though, and I was brought up this way too, to be loyal. Like if I were working for the president, I'm one of those people who probably go down with the ship. Even if I work for Donald Trump right now, and if I declared my loyalty is a powerful thing. You got to support your friends and the people you're loyal to, even when they screw up. Or do you? No one knows the answer to this. It's how many angels can you put on the head of a pin? And the point that I'm trying to get at is, at some point in time, and this is why I was very disappointed in Mueller, loyalty, adherence to the rules, no matter how draconian they are, you cease then to be an individual. You throw it away. I thought that even had Mueller, and this was based on the feelings they had at that time, not that they've changed, but they've been modified somewhat. Had Mueller truly thought that the president broke the law and ought to be the subject of greater prosecution, he should have said so. Even had he stepped outside of what he thought was right. Because after all, for all the proclamations of loyalty that we make, and we heard Harlan do it yesterday, he didn't care that Haldeman and Ehrlichman, for those of you who were around then, were trying to frame and blame everything on John Dean. See, what I love the fact is that John Dean turned the tables on them and said, oh, you want to screw me? Well, guess what? But that's where we're at. Because had there not been people willing, back in the creation of this great nation, to say, no, I'll no longer be loyal to the king. Had there not been people willing to say, no, I will no longer be loyal to the colonial policies of this country. Had there no longer been people in the South that said, I am no longer going to adhere by the laws of this state that call for slavery. Had Martin Luther King not been willing to get arrested, had the people, speaking of Vietnam, who protested the war, had not been willing to be arrested, history would not have changed. we would still be English sub. We'd be like Canada. Actually, wouldn't have been a bad run, but we're still a greater country in economy and freedom and all that we have, although the Canadians are certainly more peaceful. So blind loyalty, where does it end? I don't know. I do remember, though, going back to the 60s when I was in this, and I won't say I was in the middle. I mean, I supported the people who complained about the war if I didn't always agree with them. What changed for me, though, and I almost missed this point, and we still see this today, is when construction workers started throwing, and I'll never forget it. I was working on Wall Street then. I was in college and going to Merrill Lynch at night. And construction workers were throwing hippies down the stairs. And that was that whole hard-out thing of the subway. And beating them up and acting like football fans on steroids. And, this is America, man! And it created an image I'm never going to forget, and it endures to this day. It's not an either-or, folks. Here was the thing, though. Like most people who were moderates then, I had respect for the people that were adhering to the old ways. We need to be loyal. And I had respect for the people who fought the war, saying it was unjustified, and who created, and this is where I was very much to the left in support of the civil rights movement, et cetera, although not the far left. The far left was wackier then than the far right is now. We all tend to forget that. And they were more violent. But nonetheless, there seemed to be a goodness to them, a purity to what they were doing. And then Joan Baez, who was A, a great singer, and B, one of the political icons of the era on the left. You know, in fact, the left was more of a lapdog for their icons than anybody on the far right today is a lapdog for Trump. Just want to get that off my chest. But you had this respect for them. And then one day, Joan Baez got caught supporting something that was clearly wrong. And I remember reading in the paper, because I had a friend who was friends who were to the far left, and she told the reporter, she said, you know, we have to do this or we can't win. I can't make any exceptions. And I said, oh, okay. So these people that were supposed to be for motherhood and against sin and as pure as the day is long are just as political and cynical as anybody else. And now here we are 50 years later, and now cynicism has become the currency. It's become the currency in politics. It's become the currency in business. And I've said it for 15 years on the air. I will say it till they put me in the grave. And I don't regret having done it, but I really don't. But the biggest mistake that I ever made in business, to the extent that it hurt me, I mean, I had a wonderful time for the most part being in a major corporation. And I was loyal, by the way, but I had a conflict of interest. I was sincere, at least then. Who knows, doing this, how can you be? I don't know. I try to be. But anyone getting to the train right now here at the train station or listening in their cars knows that the absolute worst trait that they can have when they report through the doors of a corporation or a government office is integrity or sincerity. Because sincerity and integrity don't match with blind loyalty. All right, I got that off my chest. It is 7:06. We're going to go to the weather. Then we're going to open up the telephones, 222. They're open right now, 222-3141, and we'll get busy. Vince going to be calling in very soon. We are going to take another look at the weather because, hey, that's what we do. And we're going to make it almost, what's the right word? Dramatic, because it's going to be dramatic. We're going to see some dramatic changes. Now, remember, the weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. Now, get this, as the music gets more nifty. It's 21, it's cold, it's going to get up to 32 today. That's nice. Tonight, increasing clouds, getting down to 26. It'll actually be an increase over how we feel right now. Tomorrow, things begin to warm up. Some sprinkles during the day, but 48 degrees during the day as well at night. It will get down to 45 as we begin to see an increase in the temperatures. We move into Saturday, it'll get up to 60. Sunday, early rain, getting up to 62 or so. Man, we can get out the baseball. Spring training comes early at night, getting back down to 35, and things get normal again. As we head into the top of the hour right now, Uh, we want to remind you that the program is supported today by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena and Con, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality, and so much going on. I'm going to take just to make sure I didn't miss out on any of the national news that you care about, because there's so much. This guy Goshen's a pisser. This gentleman from who ran Nissan and scooted out of Dodge before they could put him in jail or prosecute him. He got out of his country. Now, a lot of people aren't following it, but a major corporate guy, and finally a company wants to hold a corporate person accountable and maybe send them to jail. We don't do that enough, by the way. And even if it's a club fed, fine, put the person in club fed. They won't be free, but they wanted to lock this guy up. But they hadn't tried him yet. He put forward this was the former chairman of Nissan, $15 million bail, but he snuck out of Dodge, went to a country, I believe Lebanon, where there is no extradition between it and Japan. So they're not going to be able to do anything about it. He's free, and now he's beating up on Japan. That's an interesting story. We'll get to that more. Now, let me check my day file out where I keep my secret stories. But 222-3141. Now, I'm waiting for an update. It was so, what we call late, meaning recent, that we don't have a lot of details on it. But yet another story coming out of the New Rochelle school system where someone is being accused, and we don't know yet if it was a teacher or if it was a administrator, or for that matter, if it was, now what did I do with that? Oh, here it is. Administrator, we don't know. But someone is being accused of perhaps sexual harassment or more. Now, a story that somehow has been stepping through the raindrops in the last few days that I wanted to do before, unless you call and interrupt me, which you can feel free to do, is you all recall several months ago, we all did the story of the individual who, the woman up in Connecticut who disappeared. And everyone was suspecting the husband. Well, finally, the estranged husband of missing Connecticut mom Jennifer Dulos was charged with her murder. This happened Tuesday as police unveiled a trove of chilling evidence against him. Luxury home builder Fotis Dulos was arrested at his sprawling mansion in Farmington more than 7 months after Jennifer went missing on May 24th amid a bitter divorce. Justice, tweeted the police department in New Canaan, where Jennifer lived before she went missing. Dulos' ex-girlfriend, Michelle Traconis, 25, and a lawyer pal, a man by the name of Kent Mohini, 54, also were busted in the case on Tuesday. Dulos' ex-girlfriend, Dulos, 52, was charged with capital felony murder and kidnapping, raps that could see him put behind bars for life if convicted. Jennifer, 51, was last seen dropping their kids off at school in New Canaan, and despite intensive searches and including Fotis' 5-acre estate of 3,000-acre reservoir property nearby, she still hasn't been found. However, now they've gotten more information, a shallow grave that they're now digging up. At any rate, he was finally arrested, and I don't know how people think they can get away with this kind of stuff, but they do, and they can. Today, we will be reaching out to Mark Lungriello. We just wanted to put you on notice, and if he listens, we'll be reaching out to him to comment on and give us detail on a full-page story he did last week. It was a story with a lot of good information, but no conclusions. And that is, what are the Masons planning to do to the College of New Rochelle campus? And always been a friend of the program, though we've not bothered him. We've not reached out to him since we're here. And certain other journalists that tend to be on a couple of different networks. But we will be reaching out to his learned mind to find out what's going on there. So all of that coming up. 914-222-3141. 914-222-3141 if you'd like to join the conversation. Now, I'm going to try and see what we can find out about the New Rochelle schools, because something is going on. It came across News 12 earlier. It hasn't yet to be on their website. We're going to see if it's there now. And and it has something to do with perhaps sexual harassment of some kind. So we're going on to News 12 Westchester right now, give them attribution if they should have an update on this story. And so far we don't see anything. No, House to vote on restraining President Trump. Mount Vernon School Resource Officer. No. Sumer's bus driver appears in court. No, nothing yet. Nothing yet. It depends on when these stories come out. Oh, my. Now, we got an update on the story for that plane crash, okay? And Iran is saying that the Ukrainian plane was on fire when it crashed and tried to turn back. Now, again, you're looking at things like maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think this is a covered ride of blow to blowing at all, but here it is. This is out of the Associated Press, a few minutes old. The crew of a Ukrainian jetliner that crashed in Iran, killing 176 on board, never made a radio call and were trying to turn back to the airport when their burning plane went down. An initial Iranian investigation report said Tuesday that it was on fire, and now Ukraine said it considered a missile strike as one of several possible theories for the crash. The Iranian report suggests that a sudden emergency struck the Boeing 737 just minutes after taking off. And no immediate explanation beyond that, but still, the crash came just a few hours after Iran launched a ballistic missile attack against Iraqi military bases. Now, perhaps they're suggesting that a missile went awry, but clearly something went wrong. No radio messages were received. Eyewitnesses, including the crew of another flight, described seeing the plane engulfed in flames. Now, this is important. Before crashing, again, this on News 12 and out of the Associated Press today. The crash caused a massive explosion, blah, blah, blah. The report also confirmed that both the so-called black boxes that can turn data had been recovered. Now, an interesting thing about an airplane that just takes off, just for those of you who may like airplanes or find it interesting, is they often take off at a weight they couldn't land at. And so when a plane has to make an emergency landing, A, it's going to land heavy, and B, if there's time, they may actually have to get rid of fuel so that the landing gear doesn't collapse or that the takeoff roll isn't going to be too long. But nonetheless, here now, another update on the story. A strike by a missile, and this is coming from Ukrainians. A strike by a missile, possibly a Tor missile system, is among the main theories as information has surfaced on the internet about elements of a missile being found near the site of the crash. He did not elaborate where he saw the information, but again, this particular investigator saw it on the internet. Ukrainian investigators that arrived in Iran earlier Thursday await permission to examine the crash site. Now, the Tor is a Russian-made missile system. Russia delivered 29 Tor M1s to Iran as part of a $700 million contract signed in December of 2005. Iran did not immediately respond to these comments. However, General Abolsfazi Shekarchi, the spokesperson for the Iranian Armed Services, denied a missile hit the plane. He dismissed the allegations as psychological warfare by opposition groups. Ukraine has a grim history with missile attacks, as you know, including the 2014 event where one such strike downed a Malaysian Airlines flight. That's another airline with a great record. They still got a plane flying around in the Indian Ocean somewhere, probably because of a wacky pilot. The plane was carrying 167. This particular incident had 9 crew members from several countries, including Iranians, Canadians, Ukrainians, and so forth. So most of them were international students. Something happened to that airplane. And unlike some in the business world, don't be so quick to blame Boeing. This particular plane, the 800, I'm telling you, there are more of them than hen's teeth. It is an extremely safe. Look, I'm not an apologist for Boeing. It's just that we should get our facts straight. People, when it comes to death-defying things like flying, oh, God, Boeing planes are falling out of the sky. No, they are not. They're the best airplane manufacturer that's ever existed. And they made a mistake, though. Doesn't mean that they didn't screw up in the MAX, don't get me wrong, and that they tried to cover it up. That's what companies do, or at least tried to move it through thinking, the system will correct itself. They screwed up. But that's like saying when Picasso was drunk one night or made a mistake or decided to do a commission and made a bad painting, that he wasn't Picasso. Boeing is what Boeing is, so please. Now, yesterday, I have another announcement to make. Next week, we will have on this program the current district attorney, and we will make sure that we have balance. The current district attorney, Scarano, will be here to talk about his candidacy and running again, and we'll ask him why he thinks he's been challenged by a TV star who also happens to be an attorney. And as you know, we'll give her equal time, and if she wins us over, we'll admit that. And I was even kidding. This is just full disclosure. I was even kidding when I contacted their offices yesterday, because I love the idea of an understated DA, especially after I saw what happened to Jeff Deskovic, with whom the station has a relationship. The man who is world famous for his exoneration after 16 years for a murder he didn't commit, and murder and rape he didn't commit. And this is my own opinion, but it matters. I don't want a TV star who wants to be senator or president or just a bigger TV star running for DA. In fact, if you want to run for Senate, go ahead. You want to run for the president. We've had two presidents now. We've had an actor who was a fine president, and we've had a reality star who the jury is out because they can't decide just what kind of president he's been yet. But nonetheless, we've had two men, and that's fair, become presidents. But what I don't want someone from that field that is driven by narcissism and has been driven by Janine Pirro, like it's all about meism, which is another way to call it narcissism. We do not need that type in office, unless, of course, she's the real deal. Now, I've gotten calls from very serious, highly regarded people on a national level saying, no, Bob, this is a really talented woman. Okay, fine. Well, what we're going to ask her is, would she be willing, and we're going to ask her this question if she comes on this radio station, would she be willing to say that she will not run for any other office, because that is my gold standard for someone who wants to be a DA? Because all too often, as we saw with the governor yesterday, but he already has the job, so nothing we can do about that, they don't admit mistakes and people go to jail. We are not. The citizens of this country are not abstractions. We are real people. The citizens of this country, it's not enough to say, well, a couple of people went to jail, too bad. No, if one person goes to jail because you are a narcissistic careerist, because of that, and we're just fodder for your life, that isn't good enough. Now, I'm not saying that's what this challenger is, what Rika is. I don't know. But we're going to ask you that question. All right, it's 7:21. It is time. Are our phones working today? Because I've noticed that we're not hearing from anyone, and we should be. So tell you what we're going to do. We're going to wake up our 7:20 guest. That is what we're going to do. We're going to find, where is he? Where is he? Where is he? We're going to find this right now. We're not going to allow him to get away with this. We're going to, well, I know his phone number. Why don't I just call it? Christmas time. All right, I'm sorry. I'm trying to do 87 things at once. We've designed this studio so that I can. Here we go. All righty, let's take this call. He's calling 2 minutes late, but we'll take it. It could be our clock. Our first guest of the day, Vince Russo, a man who has been around all these years and is probably, if he's been listening to this monologue, knows that I am truly stuck in the middle. It is 7:22 on this Thursday, January 9th, 2020. Vince, good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, Bob.
Oh, you're bright and frisky. What did you do last night, or are you not allowed to tell us?
Actually, I had a good night's sleep.
You know what? So did I. Got all new equipment that I attached to my CPAP machine. Because what happens is, believe it or not, the hose gets holes in it. And I slept like a baby, overslept really. Slept like a child. Notice I'm not hoarse today. I'm not coughing. I'm not hacking. I'm not sniffling. I haven't fallen asleep, although I may have put some of you to sleep. just thought I'd mention it. Have you been listening to my monologue? I'm torn. I really am. I'm torn. The fact that the far left and the far right are making life miserable for us.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because anybody in the middle now just can't run for office. There's no way that they can survive. If you're in a political office now and you espouse a middle of the road position, if you want to work with the opposite party to try and get anything done, you get primaried out.
Yep.
So unless you're so extreme, and it's on both sides, the Democrats as well as the Republicans are to blame for this. You don't have any states people anymore. You don't have people.
Aren't you being politically correct today? Statesman is what
Yeah,
he
I
wanted to
know.
say, but he stopped himself,
course.
folks. He stopped himself. Statesmen or women, you're absolutely right. Now, just for your further commentary, one of our top stories today had to be the State of the State address by the governor last night.
I did not hear it.
Okay, good, because here's the point. I'll cut to it. Right now, the biggest issue in New York State is that this bail program, well intended though it may have been for people who don't have much money and stay in jail for 6 months because they stole a pack of cigarettes, theoretically, of course. But what happening is judges have no discretion. And so people have gone and committed crimes literally after they were let out. And in one case here in New York, the same day, the guy broke the windows in the police station after he burglarized someone. And so it is the talk of the state, right? Everyone, even Democrats now, are saying, whoops, we went too far. We need this thing throttled back. We need to give judges discretion. So, a la someone who reports the press after President Lincoln is shot, talks about the play and never mentions the bullet in the back of the head of the president. And so yesterday, Andrew Cuomo had his, I need to appeal to my base, didn't say a word about it. Didn't say a word about it. Not a word. And the guy's
Well,
been
it's
in
not
office.
surprising because they pass these dopey laws to try and pander to certain groups, and it's ridiculous. They say, oh, only black people get put in jail and can't make bail. Well, it's just not true. And the fact of the matter is, there are some crimes where they should classify them as minor enough where you don't have to put up bail, but by and large, it's not the case. If the case you cited was this guy was a burglar and they let him go, and he literally went from the jail and went and burglarized somebody's house. So, yeah, it's totally crazy, and I don't know. I always felt that Cuomo was more about grandstanding and anything else. And can he speak without shouting? Is that possible?
No, you know what?
I've never heard the man speak in a normal tone of voice.
He
Well,
lives,
when I'm over there.
He lives under the shadow of his father, who was a great orator, and so he practiced the cadence, but doesn't have. He's a pretty smart guy. I mean, I've interviewed him. He's a smart guy, but he's not in his father's class. Number one, and number two, he shouts where he should intonate. It's a common problem with people who give speeches. But and he tries to put that sing-songy thing. But even at the end of his career, as you remember when I would interview his dad, which was always fun, but even Mario Cuomo, rest his soul, would be a little bit sing-songy towards the end of his career. He would talk on the radio like he was giving a speech, no, I mean, that's with all due respect. I really was lucky to be able to score those interviews with him. But nonetheless, the son is never the father. In fact, the son is a much more brutal politician than his father is. But he blew it this time. Unless, of course, the road to riches is by placating to the far left.
Well, it has to be now. I mean, that's the only way he's going to get reelected.
But
it has to be. Because that whole Ocasio-Cortez contingent has taken over that party.
What are you going to give me a headache?
The same way the Tea Party has taken over the Republican Party. I mean, unless you were off to the fringes, if you are a moderate in any way, you're just not going to get elected.
Well, the Tea Party now is coming off as more moderate. I mean, the world's changing to the
Actually,
point.
they are.
Yeah, they're the same ones. I brought up earlier, in fact, you and I had this conversation 50 years ago about how disappointed I was when, you remember, I was pretty moderate during in the 60s. I mean, I skewed left, and I was for the civil rights movement, blah, 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 and I thought that we were wrong in Vietnam, but had a lot of mixed feelings. And as I've said many times on the air, and I'm sure a lot of younger people don't believe it, but back when we were young, the far left, I'm not talking about your average war protester, but the far left was far more violent than the far right is today, or at least in their day-to-day protests they were. But
well, in their day-to-day support, I mean, they all supported the Black Panthers, who were just a bunch of murderers.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So, and they were, and then they had all those stupid radio programs. I throw Rush under the bus now because he's more socially acceptable. But now, what I'm going to say is going to get me in trouble, but I'm going to do it. There'd be a program about we support the treacherous and allegorious demonstrations of Mobutu, who shot 6 cops but was in the right to do it because they wore a blue uniform. I mean, they had these stupid radio shows and things like that. And they were far more to the left. But that was the way it was. But still, I had skewed left in that time. It wasn't until Joan Baez admitted that she was lying about something. And then when they asked her to admit why she lied, she said, well, we have to support the movement no matter what.
Yeah. Well, did you hear this ridiculous proposal some knucklehead from Seattle put forward, that the solution to all the crime we have in this country is to eliminate police forces, have no police forces?
Who said this?
And I don't know if I don't exactly remember if they were like a council person or something up there in the Pacific Northwest, which is really wacko country, and that what they would do is, instead of having police, they would give poor people a lot of money, and because they had money, then there would be no more crime.
Doesn't work that way.
Now that presupposes that poor people are the ones committing all the crime,
right,
which is not true.
No, they should go to Wall Street.
It's not true. And B, it presupposes that just because someone has money, that they're not going to commit crimes anyway. The mafia has plenty of money. They continue to commit crimes. Wall Street, like you just said, they have plenty of money.
Look at this guy Goshen.
It's the most ridiculous thing. People come up with these cockamamie schemes that are just, it's because that all the people that get arrested are black and Latino.
It's nuts. Well, that's that extreme. And then on the right, but see, I'm picking on the left right now because we've been picking on the right now for 8 years. In fact, I can still skew and turn my whole head around. The stuff that I see now, on the web, because the president, and again, we need to give the president the benefit of the doubt here. It looks like what he did with this general was successful. Okay, But the people on the far right have been posting on Facebook pictures of President Obama crying over this and things like that. Where people on the far right got this notion that simply because he reached out to other governments that he was somehow anti-American. Well, of course, as I always say, after all, he was tan, and his presidency, I thought, were the darkest days for the country in my lifetime until, of course, Trump got elected. And when I say the darkest days, like people would call this show and say, he was the most divisive president ever. And you know how I win that argument? No, he wasn't. Lincoln was. Of course he was divisive.
True.
There were people who couldn't sleep at night because the man in the White House was tan. Of course he was divisive.
I was surprised at the speech that Trump gave the other night the other day about Iran, and I didn't think he had it in him to.
I knew you were going to say that.
As moderate as he was, because when I heard the president is going to address the nation, I said, "Oh boy, here it comes." But I thought that there was some parts of it that I thought I cringed a little at, but by
They did
and
a nice
large,
job. No, the
I
president
think
did.
he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, thought they did a good job, and I think, as I said, I think on a previous call, when he whacked that general, he put Iran in a very untenable position.
Yes, he did.
He put the government of Iran, because they're not idiots. They know they can't win a war with us. I mean, come on, they'd have to be total psychotics if they think that they could. But they've got all of those knuckleheads in the, in Tehran, in the streets. That to America, And you know who I got to compliment? I was watching the national news the other night, and Martha Raddatz, who I think is probably our best foreign correspondent forever. She was literally standing in the middle of it, reporting from Tehran, even interviewing these people. What do you think? We kill all Americans.
I used to hate
America.
that.
And she's there right in the middle of it, reporting. This woman, aside from the fact that she's very, very intelligent, and the analysis she gives of these situations is usually pretty spot on. But boy, oh boy, to have the chutzpah to just stand in the middle of all of this chaos and report was just really something. I tell you what.
Hey, did you hear? I don't know if you had a chance to listen to Harlan yesterday, but after we covered this, we took a walk down memory lane, all the way back to President Nixon and President Eisenhower, Watergate. If you get a chance, you should re-listen to that. You should try and catch up with that part of the show yesterday. I got to go get the mayor now, but did you listen to any of it?
I didn't know. I had a bunch of meetings in the morning yesterday, and I had to scoot kind of after we talked.
All right. Well, listen, I've got to go and talk to Mayor Noam Bramson, but thank you for weighing in on the issues of the day, sir.
Tell the mayor to get them to fix that bathroom in the radio in the.
Oh yeah, yeah. Bye. Take care. Another fan of that problem. All righty, we need. My system is working well. Oh, here we go. There he is.
Hey, Bob.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Mayor. Allow me to reset. I pressed the button a little late. Please welcome his first visit for the new year, the mayor of New Rochelle, Noam Bramson. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm great, Bob. It's good to talk to you. And I got to begin with an apology because, as you know, I was scheduled to call in on Monday morning, and I have to plead guilty to just messing up my schedule. So I hope I didn't leave you in the lurch on Monday, and I'm happy to be with you today on Thursday.
No, Mayor, and you were very kind about it, and I'm glad you can come on because there are a few things to talk about. But more importantly, no, I got the note from your mother, and always taken. I run into her because of where I hang my hat in the radio station more than I run into you. She shops in the downtown.
She's ubiquitous.
Yeah, she really is. Mayor, we're off to a new year. You swore in, and you were sworn in again, of course, as well. A new council, a council with a different look, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about it. And this is obviously no disrespect to the prior council, which was excellent and worked well together. I have great respect for every member of it, but. We've got 3 new members this year. That's the most significant turnover in several terms. And for the first time since the early 1990s, a majority of the council will be women. And all the women wore white at the inauguration in honor of the suffragists. Everyone, of course, brings their own individual perspective, and it's not as though everyone will agree on every issue. But I think when you looked at that tableau of the city council being so diverse, reflective of the composition of our community, and that sort of blend of continuing experience with the energy and new perspectives that come from folks who are serving for the first time. I think there's a very hopeful feeling, and I think it's going to be an excellent council. I'm looking forward to a wonderful, constructive year.
It should be interesting. Of course, the year has been defined in many ways, the last 2 years perhaps, by the developmental success in the downtown and a trend that continues. Although one of the things we have sensed in some of the earlier comments by new council members and the zeitgeist out there, that some people have a concern that we're moving too quickly. Others feel there ought to be a moratorium. We had on Councilman Hyden yesterday who said, well, maybe we just need to just stop and look, which is always a good thing. What sensibility do you get from this? Do you have any concerns about the pace of development?
I wouldn't say the word concerns, but I think we all recognize that when a community is going through change of this scale and intensity, that it's natural that there are challenges and different perspectives and fears about what the impacts of development might be. And I think it's an issue that requires constant dialogue and constant reexamination and calibration. And that has occurred over the last few years, and I expect it will continue to occur over the next few years. And I'm certainly looking forward to the manner in which the new members of council contribute their thoughts to this process. I mean, just to cite one example, we're reevaluating our affordable housing standards as a result of an analysis that was undertaken last year and will be discussed and reviewed carefully by the City Council in the first quarter of this year. And I think it's quite possible that we're going to enhance our affordable housing requirements. So I'm not saying that's the only issue. There are many issues that are related to development, but it's one example of how, as we acquire experience and as we hear from the community about hopes and expectations and worries, we want to make sure that the city and the downtown are evolving in a positive direction. I think we'll achieve that. I'll also say, and this is something as well that the new council members will bring to the table, we've done so much work to strengthen the economic fabric of New Rochelle and the physical fabric of New Rochelle through our capital budget and our infrastructure work. And that continues. It's an unfinished project with a lot more ahead. I think now there's going to be an additional emphasis on the social fabric of New Rochelle. And that is a healthy, necessary complement to the work that's already been undertaken. And again, I'm looking forward to it.
Now, when you say that the social aspect, I know a lot has been done to enhance the arts. I think in the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen more an emphasis on the arts perhaps than we ever have. The way the Lowe's Theater, that building, if you will, was reconstructed, left room for an arts center and the old facade. How much of that do you mean when you talk about social fabric and what other kinds of things?
Well, I think that's part of it, but more broadly, it is a sense of connectedness, a feeling that changes in the downtown and elsewhere are ones that extend meaningful opportunities to all of us, a sense that the benefits of growth are being shared equitably, including in those portions of our community that face the most significant challenges. It's working to the extent that we can with our school district to ensure that every child receives the kind of education that enables him or her to achieve their potential. It's building on partnerships like My Brother's Keeper, which link the efforts of multiple social service organizations to enhance opportunities from preschool all the way to career development. So it's a spectrum of different opportunities and challenges that all are aimed at making every person in New Rochelle feel like a full stakeholder in the community. And again, it's not as though we did nothing and now we do everything. It's a continuum, and lots of good things have already occurred and many additional things need to occur. But I anticipate that there's going to be an additional emphasis and focus on these kinds of challenges. And again, I think that's all to the good.
Mayor Noam Bramson, our guest, is starting yet another term here as the steward of government here in New Rochelle, ushering in a new council. Mayor, as you look forward to the year, you know, we've got the issues we've talked about, the pace of development and what should we be looking to complement it with or to look back about. What are your priorities for the new year?
Well, I think it's sort of been captured in the conversation that we've already had. It's to continue executing our downtown development plan and recalibrating to the extent that it's necessary and advisable to do so. It's making sure we continue to fully implement our 10-year capital program and make the investments in roads and infrastructure and parks and public facilities, which give residents the most tangible return on their tax dollars. It's continuing our work on environmental protection and conservation We have a new Environment and Natural Resources Advisory Committee that I think is going to be augmenting the internal work that we've already done and involving the community more fully in environmental challenges of that kind. I think we're going to see fresh progress on the waterfront as we begin to complete the new public works yard in the Wayman Avenue area. We'll now have an opportunity to complete the environmental review for Pratt Landing and move forward at that site. And as I indicated in the response to the prior question, most importantly, I think we have a chance to really strengthen and build on the work that we've done so far to create a better sense of inclusion and opportunity for all of our residents.
You know what's interesting? I'd like to share with you a light story that has to do with recent news, and I just thought you'd appreciate it. As someone who's lived in this city your own life, and me now only being here whole life, 15 years, but still, New Rochelle has a community about it, and you get to know a lot of people, even though we have 60, 80,000 people. And so, as you well know, one of the former councilmen, member of your party, Jared Rice, has moved on to a judgeship. He's now away in judge training, his mom having retired. So the other day, as you also know, Mayor, given my role as a news guy, and then when I ran the chamber, I've contributed significantly to the city coffers in terms of tickets. So the other day, and you're still there, right? So the other day, and this speaks to the community of Maryland. Naturally, I know former Councilman Rice now, 10, 15 years on first name basis otherwise. So I had a ticket. There was a problem with the meter here at the train station. And we go through the adjudication. I go into one court, and they say, all right, go in the other room. It's only $5, blah, 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 but you still have to go to court. So there's a full courtroom. I walk in there, and there must have been 150 people, other people sitting. And the judge had just been handed my ticket, and Jared Rice was on the bench in like a pre-training session. And so I look up, and I went, oh, gee, I didn't expect him to be there in his robes. It was like 2 days earlier. And he looks at me, and he says, are you the father? And I'm saying, and we're both sort of like ill at ease because we know each other personally, and I'm ready to plead guilty and don't know. And there was this start, and everybody just chuckled in the courtroom. And I said, I guilty. I'll pay the fine. He goes, well, go ahead, go around the back and pay the fine. But it's just one of those things that can happen in a town like this. And again, I texted him later and I said, I'm sorry I reacted in the start. I just didn't expect to see you there. And maybe it was funnier to both of us when it happened, but you can imagine my start when I walked in, and the story was a day old.
Well, let me say that's a fun anecdote, and it does illustrate that in a community of our size, we're going to cross paths with each other in lots of different ways, and for the most part, that's a joy.
Yes.
And there are other moments when it may be a little awkward, like what you described, but it sounds like everyone did what they were supposed to do. And even though Jared knew you, there was no favoritism for you.
Oh, no, not at all.
And nor did you seek any. And that's appropriate.
No, there was no favoritism at all. It was just we both were like surprised to see each other at that moment is what it was.
Yep. And by the way, I think I'm enormously proud that we have someone like Jared on the bench in Rochelle. He was an absolutely outstanding colleague on the city council and a great friend and someone with a deep well of commitment to New Rochelle and to a fair system of justice, and I think he'll be a wonderful credit to the court system. Well, so congratulations to Jared on assuming this new role.
Very much so. And you know what I was kind of excited about doing what I'm doing is we really can't interview, as you know, on the radio, judges at any great length when they're in office. And it's going to be fun to be able to interview the former Judge Rice. Now, I had interviews with her because I used to cover the drug court extensively, which is a wonderful innovation. And I would interview her in chambers then, but other than that topic, almost never. So now I'm going to get a chance to interview her in a different context. So Mayor, I will let you go. I know how busy you are, and please don't worry about Monday. Those things happen. And again, I got the note from your mom. Continued success. Happy New Year to you and your family.
Thank you, and the same in return, Bob. Be well.
All right, take care. Mayor Noam Bramson, everyone, and we will be hearing from him again. We have our next guest in the studio, and it's always a pleasure to have him. We're going to give you a quick look at the weather first, and our man in White Plains is in the house. He's dressed well today. His wife clearly took the job to dress him, John Bailey, and of course, we'll be talking a little bit with Jake Schaefer right after that as well. And Jake sent me on a mission yesterday. He wanted me to call these folks from Dominic's Fine Cigars. I went over there, and what a great place. And we'll be talking more about that with him and about an upcoming broadcast we'll likely, with Jake, do from that locale. But first, the weather. And wait till John Bailey hears the weather report. Bet you don't know this, John Bailey. Bet you don't. Well, it's 21 right now, and you knew that because you walked in and it's cold, but it is sunny, getting up to 32 degrees. But the real thing you want to know about the weather, it's going to be cold today, mostly average about 32, but increasing clouds tonight. That's right, increasing clouds. Getting down to 26, but tomorrow things begin to change. We get into Friday, sprinkles, as the now famous, well, we'll talk about who called it sprinkles later. But 48 degrees tomorrow at night, only getting down to 45. Why didn't it get lower? Why? Because on Saturday, it's going to be 60 degrees. But that's not all, John Bailey. On Sunday, 62 or more, may even get up to 65 on Sunday after some rain in the morning. And then at night, it's going to get back down to 65. The weather this morning is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And at the bottom of the hour is brought to you by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Con, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and Dominic Cigars. Today's program is also brought to you by the aforementioned United Hebrew of New Rochelle. And he's in the house. He's looking around in our new studio. He likes it. He's got to get closer to the mic, though. We won't hear him. He is, of course, the managing editor and publisher of WhitePlainsCitizen.net. He's the host of the TV show White Plains Week. Please welcome John Bailey. Good morning, John.
Good morning. 19 degrees in White Plains, New York, USA, when I got up this morning.
19 degrees.
19.
Oh, cold. Did you ever break it?
It is cold.
Well,
it is cold. However, the January thaw, as you just told everybody, is coming along right on schedule.
Mark, can you believe it? It's probably going to be 65 Sunday. I'm going to be out in a bikini for the women to check me out.
Yes.
I didn't mean to.
Yes, well, I'm now on intimate terms.
I ruined your
microphone.
day, didn't I?
Yes.
I ruined your day. Jake just threw up in a pail over in his little nook.
Well, I like seeing that Jake is not wearing shorts like so many people I see walking to White Plains High School. What a phenomenon. They don't realize they can get frostbite.
No, kids do wear
Where's
shorts.
their mama?
My grandson does. Well, I disabused him of that because athletes think it's
Crazy
cool.
stuff.
Yeah, it is crazy stuff. All right, you always bring in a bag of tricks, but I see a treatise on your desk. What the heck? What is that?
Well, a lot happened the last 5 days.
Are you writing about your loving tribute to me? Is that what that is?
Well, we all pay tribute to Bob Marrone in some way.
All right, what do you got for me?
Right. Well, we had a new common council for a new era in...
Oh,
I
just kinda
was
like
about to say indicted, but they were installed.
Good grief!
What a terrible faux pas. But anyway, they swore in Victoria Presser and Jennifer Puja and Nadine Hunt Robinson for another term, and they elected Nadine Hunt Robinson council president.
Wasn't she a judge once, Nadine Robinson?
She was originally appointed by the mayor when Mr. Buchwald departed.
Oh,
You
okay,
remember?
gotcha,
Yes.
Mr. Buchwald.
And then she ran.
Get a
for
little closer to the mic. You're dead.
Okay, then she ran for re-election that fall after she was appointed, and then she ran again because the term expired, and so this is her second term.
Because I know this woman. I'm trying to figure out where I know her from somewhere else. But
Well, she was environmental attorney, and she also cast the deciding no vote in the original FASNY defeat.
That's why I know her.
And she was appointed to the council by the mayor, so this stunned everybody. However, she was also the one that was appointed at the suggestion of the Black Caucus in White Plains, who said, oh wait, it was Boykin's seat. I misremember because I am aging up. But anyway, Boykin ran for the county legislature and was elected to that, so they had to fill him, and it was pointed out that we have to appoint another black because that's the, quote, black seat.
Oh, is that one of those
That's
situations?
right.
Okay.
And which I always thought was interesting because they had already groomed Nick Wolf in White Plains. When Nick Wolf attended council meetings, all sorts of stuff, and then he didn't get it.
Okay.
They
So we had a
appointed
wolf applied. So we had a seat yet for
Nick
different
Wolf,
species.
very
as well.
well-known
A wolf.
person in
Okay,
White Plains.
right.
But anyway, that was sort of interesting the way that worked. But now she's common council president.
No, she's a
and
very impressive
should Mayor
woman.
Roach ever decide to step down from his mayor for life position,
I remember Nadine Robinson's a very
Yes.
impressive woman, and I'm trying to remember where I met her and how, but a very impressive woman.
well, she is. Well, to me, all women are impressive.
Well, that's a generalization and misogynistic. You can't say that, not on these airwaves. Everyone
Yes,
is simply a
but I
carbon-based
respect-
life form.
I respect women, and I like
So do
strong
I.
women. And I like
The second one in 2
intelligent
days to come in
women.
and pander
I like
to.
beautiful women. I am.
You see, and you know when
What
I
can
say
I
that,
say?
you know I'm full of it. But you see, I make no distinction, sir. I am the purest broadcaster you will. Right now, Kate Upton could walk in here, and I would give her the same treatment that I give you, sir. Continue.
Well, all I'm saying is that we should all respect women more, particularly the persons creating
That's
movies in
create-
Hollywood, who always portray them in a negative light for the most part.
Well, they're doing much better
They,
at that now.
no, not so. I mean,
well,
really,
okay. Continue, please.
Right, but we digress. But anyway, and Con Edison is now saying to me that the new delivery charge increase that they are going to be applying to our electric and gas bills will not go into effect for a while because it hasn't been approved yet by the Public Service Commission. We always have you, the consumer, in mind, Commission. And that has not been approved, but when it is approved, it will be retroactive to the first of the year.
Okay.
So, but that is an interesting charge. The delivery charge for electric will go up $5, which isn't much, but when you consider that you are paying virtually 3 times for the delivery charge than you are for your electric rate,
My
for the
goodness.
actual electricity you get or buy, that intrigues me. It's like you're paying for the milk carton.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but you're paying for the milk
But you
carton.
know what? We should be hard on Con Edison. If you look at your cable bill lately and seen the different charges that they get, there are charges that make no sense
But
on
we
that thing.
choose that.
Oh, got your point.
Yes, that's right. You can cut your cable bill way down if you don't have
It's like going
a
to one of those.
gazillion channels you never watch because you don't have the time.
It's like going to a madam of discipline. You
Yeah.
requested it. Beat me with that
yes,
stick.
Well, I'm not going to get into that.
Oh, okay. Well, no,
I mean,
so to
this
speak.
is a family radio
No, I'm
station.
just saying that. No,
Yeah.
it is, but I'm just saying it's the
Right.
same choice. Yeah, go ahead,
Right.
beat me, but I want it.
Yes, but
Yeah,
I mean,
okay,
this
go
is interesting. And the other thing on energy, Bob, is that the new green energy rate from Westchester Power is now 0.0791 cents a kilowatt hour.
Don't get
Slightly
into those
down.
weeds. Slightly better. No, but what does it
Slightly
mean
less.
in dollars and cents? But I mean, does it matter? I mean, is it 3 cents less in a month? I mean, if someone's going to come up with one of these letters in the mail, get away from Con Edison, buy it from us. It'll be cheaper forever, and it's 7 cents cheaper. I don't even need.
Yes.
I don't have the time for the paperwork.
Yes, but the big deal, Bob, is that it's a set rate all 12 months. This is why it is so important, because if you have electric heat
Oh, yeah. Well,
for your air conditioning. You are dead meat in the summertime.
It's time for your... Oh, I see.
That's right.
Right.
Because
now
Con
you're
Ed
making
charges
sense.
you by usage.
The mother load.
Yes.
So what you're saying is I should make that switch if I use a lot of electricity in the summer because of the rate
well,
doesn't...
it can be
the rate
very
of the bill doesn't
debilitating
change.
to
No, but
pay that
in
bill.
other words, it's a flat fee is what
It's
you're
a
saying.
flat
Why
rate.
doesn't the memo, when they send a letter, say flat rate for energy? Why
Because
don't they do
don't
what
employ
you just
smart
did?
advertising guys like you and me.
Why don't they say that? I'd have made the switch.
Uh,
But they give me all this dribble. You paying too much for electricity? Does your hangnail have fungus on it? You might want to switch to us.
Well, the other good news is that consortiums like Sustainable Westchester are growing across the state. Mike Gordon, who founded the original,
As you can see, he's very
yeah,
articulate, folks.
has, according to Westchester Power's Dan Welch, is expected to sign 215,000 customers in the rest of the state this year.
Okay.
And that's a lot of people. That's a consortium, of course, is binding together a number of communities like Sustainable Westchester did, and combining the buying power. And this is apparently working, and we're going to be talking with them in February after.
Could you do me
their
when you
conference.
talk with them in February? Why don't you drag them in here? Bring them in here
I'm
one day.
sure
Tell
they'd
them
like
we'd
to
love have
come
them.
because
See,
they're not promoting it and its success as well as
if
they
someone can really make a difference, because I hear from publicists
can.
every
They make
day.
a big difference.
No,
in
if
habit.
they can make a difference like that, we need to help promote it for the good of our listeners. We need to help them.
Well, shouldn't the county be doing that? Shouldn't the state be doing that?
Yeah, they're going to, but it's just like it's something I've been railing about. I've given up. Anyone who wants to go and take the Hutch by going through Pelham Manor needs to have their head examined because either the city or the sewer people or Con Ed can't find their butt with both hands. What they have done to tie up traffic in that town is horrible. And it's got to be somebody's fault. I just don't know who to blame. But my point is, when we can make life better, we need to do it.
Oh, how true that is, Bob. And I
Don't
also
trust
like to
government to
say
do it.
that Sustainable Westchester Power, they're two of the same organizations, now has 115,000 customers signed up in the Westchester area.
I'll sign up if they would get rid of all the rhetoric and just tell me what my benefit is.
Well, the benefit is a stable rate, number one.
A stable rate or a flat fee?
A stable rate per kilowatt hour.
Okay.
Okay, a stable rate.
All right, continue. What else do you have?
And,
by the way, you like me, are you trying to figure out why he has a number on his hat? Does that look like a union hat? 315? What is it?
It might be.
What is it?
Syracuse area code.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Wow. Yeah. Okay, continue. That's exciting,
the
isn't it?
Yeah, the Doral Arrowwood closer really took us by surprise.
Did
because
it?
we knew they were in financial straits last
I've
summer.
done some shows out of them. Why are they in financial straits? It's a hotel, right? Or is it more than that?
Yes,
Is it a
it's
golf
the
club?
holding company that owns the hotel property employed a manager to run the hotel, and they have decided to probably sell this hotel.
Why did the
and they closed it.
Why does a hotel in Westchester, where we don't have enough hotels, fail? Is it where it is, or is it too expensive, or is it too upscale a property?
Some of the questions that the journalists don't ask.
Well, what does happen, though?
And
some
they
of those-
won't tell you.
Is that the one? There's one up there that's so big. There's such a huge hotel. I don't know how they make
The
money.
Rytown Hilton?
I don't know if it's that one, but it's this. It may be the Arrowhead, where I've done a couple of stories there, but maybe they don't get enough conferences. Conferences are expensive, and up with the video.
Well, you make a
now.
good point, because there are no really good hotel conference convention
Centers, right.
facilities in the county, and I have been, ever since they started trying to redo the downtown area around the train station, my suggestion was you build a huge hotel over the railroad station.
Over the
it,
railroads.
and it soars into the sky. It has lots of parking, and you can bring in conventions into the heart of Westchester right on a train line. But no, they don't have a vision like that.
Do you know what would sound cool? The John Bailey. Sounds upscale, doesn't
The
it?
Roach Hilton.
No, I don't think you want to name a hotel the Roach Hilton.
Well.
The place is bugged. It is 8:02. We're talking about. What else do you have, John
But no,
Bailey?
that could have been a really
What
good
else?
thing.
John Bailey, he's the managing editor and publisher of
Okay,
Biplane Citizen.
Wegmans is going to open June the 1st.
I've got to get Ron Belmont on. What?
Yeah.
Have you ever been to a Wegmans?
What?
Have you ever been to a Wegmans?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Has your wife ever been to?
Well, she is very high on it.
You have no idea.
No.
I know women who drive miles out of the way to get to a Wegmans. I don't know what it is, but this place has a mystique that women will crush, will walk through babies. They'll crush babies. They'll put them out of the way, burn them.
But that is a date to keep in mind.
Why is Wegmans so cool? It's a... Jake,
Well,
get on a mic. Tell us. Get on a mic, Jake.
Yes.
Jake comes from Wegman land, upstate. Let's put on. We're going to be talking about other stuff. At 9 o'clock, we have a very special guest. He and I are going to be entertaining. But Jake, why are Wegmans so cool?
Oh,
Why
I
people
can't.
love
My
them?
wife and I are so excited about Wegmans coming here.
Everybody is. Why? Why?
It is the best of everything. Everything.
The
Name
best of
something, they'll have it.
Chicken?
How is
They have it.
how are the prices?
Reasonable.
Ice cream?
What is reasonable? More than Whole Foods, for example? Do we know?
It'll be in the ballpark.
In
I
the
can't
ballpark.
speak knowledgeably about that, but it'll be in the ballpark.
No,
Like
no, I'm
deep
telling you.
fences or
No,
short
no,
fences?
I'm
Well-
telling you. I've got to do that sometime next week or the week after. When
Yeah.
Wegmans gets closer, I'm going to do a show on Wegmans, get them here. Maybe they're going to advertise. But
Wegmans may be coming in at the wrong time.
no, people.
The economy is not.
No, they don't
going
care.
well.
No. They will sell the kids. People who love Wegmans will rent the children out to Playland or something. They will go to Wegmans. Will
However,
not suffer.
I can hardly wait till the Westchester Avenue westbound traffic jams.
Interesting.
Well, we didn't think about
That is going to be a big problem.
Yeah, but I'm sure they've thought of it. The people that run Wegmans.
They don't think of that. They don't think
All
of
right.
it.
What else do you have?
We know that, don't we?
Don't look at him and come off the mic.
Right,
This isn't
right.
TV. You're not
We
wearing
know
a
that.
lavalier.
The Tappan Zee Bridge, the new Tappan Zee Bridge has taught us that.
Oh, we
The
do know
traffic
that.
is the same.
It is the same. Although it's a nicer ride over the bridge. It's prettier.
It's pretty and it
And you don't
looks
hit those,
good on TV.
Those metal things. What else do you
Right.
have?
The Empire State Penn Station that Governor Cuomo, since we're at a railroad station this morning, this is huge news.
Are you having a stroke over there?
No, I just have the cold that everybody has.
No, he's had a
You
cold
have
for a
cold.
week. He's hacking over there
I
in the
have
corner.
too.
It sounds like an earthquake.
This is my wife's cold, which I caught.
Oh, how did you
She-
catch? Do you want to tell us how you caught that cold? What was going on in the Bailey house?
Intimacy. I live with her.
Intimacy.
Yes.
Do you want to go any
I
further?
mean, that's what a marriage is. It's intimacy.
Yeah. Let's do it. Just
So
continue,
intimate,
please. Get me in
so
trouble.
intimate, you cannot stand it.
You almost made me spit my coffee out. You're listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, and it's 8:05 and 21 degrees. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a fantastic project.
Wonderful
1.6
project.
billion.
For what?
I'm.
Oh, this is down to Penn
1.6
Station.
billion. That's
Well,
right.
Why can't we get these trains to go to Penn Station so that
They-
if I want to go to a game, I mean, the Amtrak goes to Penn Station. Why can't Metro North?
They are going to do that.
But when? I've been hearing it for years. I want to
Well,
go to
he
a
didn't-
Ranger game.
He didn't mention that in his speech about it, but it is really, his projects are pretty well thought out. We have to give him credit. I think he's the greatest governor we've ever had. I really do.
Okay, well, just stop.
He
but
makes
okay.
things happen.
Yes, he does. But let me call him out on what he did yesterday, and I did it in my monologue. So if I got it right, the biggest issue in the state right now, it is prima facie. It's right there on the face of it. People are complaining. Democrats are complaining. Republicans are complaining. Judges are complaining. There are 3 beavers and a raccoon in Queens that are complaining that the bail law failed. And he gives an entire hour-plus speech, and he doesn't mention it? Mm-hmm. You're a great governor. How do you plead?
Well, it has not been proven that it's failed.
So
Has
the guy that broke into the woman's house, intimidated her, then he walks out. No, don't worry, because it's not a felony. We're going to let you go without bail. And then on the way out, he breaks the windows of the police station.
It's a judgment call.
All right. We're
The
gonna
judge
disagree.
decides.
Give me no. The judge can't. That's the problem. The law took the discretion away.
Well, they may
The
have
law
to
took-
adjust that.
Well, that's all people wanted. No, wait, I'm with you, but he should have mentioned it. It would be like the newspaper going to the play, Our American Cousin, and forgetting to report on the shooting of the president.
Right. However,
Well, I
the
scored a
bail,
point.
the bail thing, I have not learned of that many incidents about
But
it.
there are several, and but the point is that
But
the
I
public
mean, what
is
about
not,
releasing people if they pay bail? They go out and they do that.
well,
Same thing.
Well, it's a little different.
Well, it's not.
Well,
It's the
we'll
same
argue
thing.
another day. What else?
If
do
you
have?
got money, you get out.
What else? Do
That's
you
the
have?
point.
What else do you have?
Then the State of the State address by the governor yesterday, the thing I thought was most significant was that he said that he was going to start collecting more Medicaid payments from the counties because he has kept them steady.
Yeah, I've been
while
asking
the
a lot of them
hospitals,
about that.
all the hospitals
Yeah, we're
in
gonna get-
Westchester County have ratcheted
We're
up their
gonna get
Medicaid.
banned.
Their price structure has to be really attacked because they're charging too much. They are billing
Jake,
for nothing. Basically,
get the
doctors
straight jacket.
sticking their heads in.
Jake, get the straight jacket. Put them on.
No, it's true. Their medical costs are going through the roof,
Mm-hmm.
and we in Westchester and the hospitals are being. I just think they are not billing. Honestly, a doctor sticking in his head into a hospital room on rounds and charging an arm and a leg for sticking his head in.
$7
that is
for an
not-
aspirin.
That is not right.
You're upset.
That's just padding the bill.
John Bailey, and you're getting a nod from. We're still teaching him. Nodding doesn't
I know
help.
this
Say
for
something.
a fact. They kept my son in a hospital for 6 weeks looking for
I'm
an
sorry.
infection, and they're lucky they didn't kill him. He lost 30 pounds.
Did they find out what was wrong?
No,
What
they
do you
never
mean?
did.
He had one of those.
I wrote a
infections.
very nice letter.
Wait. He had,
I
he had
wrote
one
a
of those
nice letter
infections
and
of.
I got him out.
Okay, he had one of those infections of unknown origin. Then.
Yes.
Did you never found out what it is?
No.
How is
they
your
never
son
did.
now?
He's fine. Luckily.
How's his insurance?
Well, he has Medicaid.
And does he walk around? He has
And
Medicaid?
that's what it is. Medicaid is a massive fraud being perpetrated by the hospitals. A massive fraud.
What you mean is they just milk it. is
They
what you're saying.
milk it.
Of course, it's just
And
like anything
and
else.
the poor and the indigent and the disabled are used as profit centers.
Get closer to the- I'd
Profit
like to use the
centers.
more
That's what
generic
they are.
term, the
they may
miserable-
cure people, but they also milk bills.
Okay.
And I know that for a fact.
John is very upset today. And well, actually, we can talk about that. Or even now, the
But
crisis in
this
the
is
church.
what the Medicaid crisis
But
is.
once you have a pot of money that the government puts aside, people go after it. It becomes a cottage industry.
But
Whether it's
Governor Cuomo-
mesothelioma or someone who once walked by the World Trade Center the day after the explosion,
Right.
they're now suing that my ankle hurt from
Yes, but what the point of the speech that Governor Cuomo said was he is going to do a take back and make the counties pay more, which means
Your
that
taxes are
your
gonna go up.
taxes are going to go up.
Good
and-
place to end.
And they are going to blame the governor.
John Bailey, thank you very, very much for being with us today. Now, don't you go anywhere, Jake. We want to do a little bit of a setup for what's coming up at 9 o'clock. John Bailey, thank you very much. Where can people get more information about your stories?
On my website, WPCNR.com.
And when is your TV show?
White Plains Week, Friday nights at 7:30 and Monday at 7 on Channel 45 and Channel 76.
Okay, thank you very much, John Bailey, everyone. Before we go to break, we want to talk about Syracuse Hall of Famer. And you're going to talk a little bit about this. Don't go anywhere yet, Jake. Syracuse Hall of Famer Bud Pollock and writer, author, playoffs, Patriots, Baseball Hall of Fame as well. Death of a Syracuse basketball cheating scandal. Death of a Syracuse basketball what?
They're dumb. They're terrible.
Oh, okay. And cheating in baseball. We're going to talk about the Hall of Fame. And, of course, we're going to talk about the Giants, and we're going to talk about the football playoffs coming up this weekend. Jake, tell me a little bit more about Bud Qualicum, because we had such a good time with him a couple of weeks ago that we're going to talk with him for an hour today. Tell us a little bit more about
He's chomping
him.
at the bit. He was very upset that he only got 7 or 8 minutes last time. So
Well, he should know that more. Yeah, but you should know the morning radio. That's the nature of it. Except that because of people like Bud, I added that hour show where we had
He's
long
an
form.
afternoon drive guy.
Yeah, well, he should know morning radio is 7-10 minutes, and in fact we do longer interviews here because of what we've learned. But he's going to have a ball with us. Tell us a little bit more about him.
He loves sports. He'll talk to you until the cows come home about anything. He knows.
And from where you're from upstate, the cows definitely do come home.
I think I'm related to some of those cows.
No, I know. I'm sure your wife's going to love that. So
she can't wait to call in. She's actually going to call in, I think.
She is at 9 o'clock.
She's a little upset with you.
Oh, what I said yesterday? Why would your sister be upset with me? So you married her. You gave her the greatest compliment in the world. Did you? Hey, listen, before you go, and as you get ready for our 9 o'clock segment, I want just a courtesy call. You'd mentioned I give him a call. I said, rather than call him, I'll go over and visit. I stopped by
Dominic's?
Yes, what a wonderful place. And met the guy that you know very well.
Big space in the back.
Yeah, well, I went in there, and I was also doing a bit of a scouting thing. Where would we set up to do it? I didn't realize, and this is
Well, did you get a cigar? Did you buy anything?
No, I didn't buy
you're
anything.
just a schnurr.
No. I don't smoke, and in fact, I was telling him why I don't smoke, about my addiction. But I didn't realize that you had a smoking room back there, and
Watch games there. If you want to go on a Sunday, watch a nice football game.
no. But although if you're allergic to cigars, you can have an asthma attack back there. You got a lot. But everybody, there were about 7 or 8 men there. They were having a wonderful time watching TV, smoking cigars. They were very nice to me, and I can even see the corner where we'll probably set up. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
So are we going to do that for sure?
Oh, yeah, almost certainly. We just got to work out some terms with him, which we will do. But I thought it was important to go over there and say thank you, and also tell them, that we for supporting us, and that we'd like to come and do that. So thank you for that connection. And they spoke well of you. They said, for a hillbilly from up north, he's a good customer.
I can't wait till I get on the YouTube. They can actually see my cross eyes.
Oh, so your wife was. I hope she calls in. I really would love
Very
her.
upset with you.
But your parents were upset, I trust, too.
The whole family hates
The
you.
whole family. I was hoping that I could bring that love. Well, see, folks, if you weren't listening yesterday, I like to get people to come, which is silly, but again, silliness is a part of the brand here, is that Jake comes from upstate, and that he may well be his own cousin. And so you all ready for 9 o'clock? We're going to have a ball with him.
Yeah,
with Bud.
should be good.
So be ready
lots
to
to talk about.
Right, and be ready with your ideas for who you think is going to win what this coming Sunday, because we have a lot of people now who listen in just for your picks because they either want to gloat that you don't know what you're doing, or they want to share with you.
I'm actually confident this week.
Okay, you're actually confident this week?
Yeah, I am confident this week.
All right. Isn't that what Custer said? I'm confident that over that hill they're friendly Indians. All right.
Good week, though. Very good week of football coming up.
Okay, give me your biggest pick for the week. Just give me a tease.
You know I love the Titans.
You do love
And
the
I get
Titans.
9 points with them.
Now, you're too young. Are you aware that the Jets were called the Titans before they were the Jets?
The New York Titans, right?
Yeah. That's, I almost forgot that until you came in here blubbering about the Titans. Oh, the Titans this, oh, the Titans that. And then in baseball, you had the stumble bums from Florida.
Rays.
Rays, yeah,
Tampa
the Tampa
Bay
Bay
Rays.
Rays. You were all on them. You like sort of semi-underdogs, huh?
Of course.
So you okay. So you were rooting for the Indians when
How can you
Custer-
root for the Yankees? They just put money on the problems. Don't have a pitcher, $300 million. Bam.
Man,
World Series.
Why couldn't I be born 6'4" with an arm of steel? My God, I'd own this train. I'd own this city. I would be like a king. All right, Jake Schaefer, we got a little bit of an early indication of what's going to take place at 9 o'clock, and we look forward to that. We're going to talk in just a few minutes with Al Tarantino, but it is time to reset. It is Thursday, January 9th, 2020. Sounds like a program. It's not the name of the program. It's the date, Thursday, January 9th, 2020. It is still 21 degrees. 20 seems to be a theme today. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester. This is the radio station at the train station. You certainly can go to MyTuner Radio, to that app, and you can either go to Mornings with Bob Marrone, or you can go to RadioWestchester.com. You can then put it on YouTube. You can put it on Bluetooth and listen in your car or on your phone. You can also go directly to those websites. If you go to our website, RadioWestchester.com, there are several ways to listen and watch. The choices are there for you. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Periscope. We're also now on iTunes rather, and soon we will be on Spotify. And what we are going to do now, though, is share some of our weather with you. It is 31, getting up to 34 today, but the funny thing is it's going to get warm in the next couple of days. Tonight, let me finish today. I'm sorry. Mostly sunny, cold, an average temperature about 32. Tonight, increasing clouds, only getting down to 26, so it's warmer than it was last night. It was like 10. Tomorrow, Friday, sprinkles, 48 degrees, going down to 45 at night. But then Saturday is the real news. John Bailey's trying to stretch into his Speedos right now over there in the corner. 60 degrees on Saturday. But Sunday, John Bailey may even go on natural to the beaches up in Rye when it gets up to 62, maybe even 65 on Saturday, and that following early rain. But it'll still get down to 35 at night. And of course, the weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. And the top of the 8 o'clock hour is brought to you by Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, Plug-in Virtual Reality, and the aforementioned Dominic's Fine Cigars. Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Patrons, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located on Boston Post Road in Larchmont. Don't you like Larchmont? Don't you like that music? We should be hearing from Al Tarantino in a minute or two. We spoke with him yesterday. It should be interesting to chat with him after our conversation with the mayor today. And after that, one of our absolutely favorite guests, the former county executive, Andy Spano. We are going to ask him about the impact of the governor's speech yesterday, what the Medicaid conversation will cost this county, if anything. He's an expert, of course, Mr. Spano, as you know, on the impact of Medicaid costs on county government. Also, why the governor, he can't speak for the governor, but why he thinks the governor didn't mention the problems with the new bail law, the issues in Washington, A, pertaining to impeachment, and B, pertaining to this dust-up, and perhaps more than a dust-up, near war with Iran. And then, of course, 9 o'clock, remember, Bud Poliquin will be with us, a major sports broadcaster and writer. We have a lot to talk about with him. And we might well hear from Jake's wife, who is one of the more courageous people that we know for her choice of a mate. Yes, Jake.
My mom just texted. She loved the bit when I did the campaign slogans and I stumped you. So she has a couple more campaign slogans.
Oh, well, she should call it. Go ahead. Get in here. Come on.
Audrey in Syracuse.
In Syracuse.
She has a couple. These are winning campaign slogans.
All right, go ahead.
Winning president, okay? Vote yourself a farm.
Excuse me?
Vote yourself a farm.
A farm?
Farm.
Oh, you guys would know that upstate. Do you have any relationships with the animals? No, I'm sorry. No, I don't know. Go ahead, hit me. John? You're a political.
No, that goes way back.
Closer to the mic. Vote yourself a farm.
19th century, right?
Lincoln.
No.
Wow, my favorite president. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. A chicken in every pot and a car in every garage.
Herbert Hoover.
Bingo.
All right, John Bailey.
Yeah,
Herbert
Hoover. It was
Hoover.
one of the most funniest slogans ever.
One of the
because
funniest.
what
One of the most funniest. Great English. Go ahead.
4 years of a full dinner pail.
FDR.
No.
Who?
You don't want to guess?
But Bailey's on the spot here. I'm just the arbiter now. I ordered.
William McKinley.
That's going to be Al Tarantino. Maybe he can
1899.
participate with this.
1899.
All righty,
think.
Mr. Tarantino will. Did I hit the button wrong? I just hit the button. All right, there we go. Mr. Tarantino will be with you in a moment. In fact, he may want to participate with this. Stay right there. Folks, joining us right now, your city councilman from District 2 here in New Rochelle, Al Tarantino. Good morning, Councilman. How are you?
Good, Bob. How are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We're in the midst. We're finishing up. Okay. This is Audrey from Syracuse has submitted to us these campaign slogans. Now, you're a man who run like 4 campaigns in a row. So you may want to guess on some of these, Mr. Tarantino.
I got one more.
Jack Schaefer is with us, and so is John Bell. Okay, go ahead. He's a genius, this councilman.
Blaine, James G. Blaine, the Continental Liar from the state of Maine.
Al.
Okay.
Do you know who gave that campaign slogan?
It's from 1884.
No.
Teddy Roosevelt?
No, you.
Go ahead, John.
Grover Cleveland.
Yes.
Would you get close to
Very
the
good.
mic? Too
Grover
much
Cleveland.
TVs. Used to the lavalier mic. Hey, Audrey from Syracuse, thank you very much. Thank you, John Bailey and Jake. Good work. Jake's all upset with me, Councilman, because I mentioned that he comes from like the center of New York and that he married his sister, and he's all upset about that. Anyway, Councilman, how are you? It's great to have you, sir.
Good.
Now I
Good
want to
be
get
here.
I want to get to business first, but first of all, first of all, Happy New Year to you and yours and your wonderful family, which I know some of them well.
Thank you.
You, of course, have a business in the downtown. You have an iconic business, Town the Jewelers, and you never, ever, to your credit, you never use it when you're on the air as an opportunity to promote it, although you can always feel free. We owe you guys who come on. How was your business given the economy in terms of people mailing out for stuff?
Well, it was, it was kind of flat. There was no, the good old days are gone. We're realists. We understand that there's a changing dynamic out there that has impacted retailing, brick and mortar, and you adjust for it. But you don't set in today's world in retail. You don't set high expectations because if you do that, you're going to be disappointed. So it was okay, but you always want it to be better. And like I said, it's a totally different dynamic. So you don't set, you don't set the bar too high anymore.
Okay, what was that in the background? Did something happen?
That was my grandson.
Oh, okay.
And he heard Bob Marrone was going to be on the radio. I was going to be talking about Marrone, and he was laughing. He's about your height,
Oh, how old is he? About my height.
He's a year old. So.
Thank you very much, Councilman. We appreciate it. Councilman, we were talking with the mayor today, and we presented a couple of issues to him that we hear rumblings in the city, and we had on your colleague Ivar Hayden yesterday. There are some folks in town not necessarily calling for a moratorium, but they are concerned about maybe development's moving too fast. Are we included everything in the development that we wanted? Should we do a reset? Should we do a moratorium? What have we not thought of? What's your take on all this, and how do you feel things are going?
Well, there's always going to be a concern about whether or not, what we're doing is 100% correct. I believe we are heading in the right direction. We're doing what we have to do to keep New Rochelle moving forward. My biggest concern, obviously, has been about the parking in downtown. There's a group, a lot of people concerned about preservation. Others are concerned about, the actual build out, that it's going to be too big. I think that right now, we signed a 10-year agreement with RDRXR, and I think we're in the third year. The years go by so fast. Maybe it's the 4th year, and we have a commitment to them for 10 years. So, to say we want to put a moratorium in place, would be a violation of that agreement. In from what I believe is going to happen, and you would run into some legal issues. What you can do is you can demand. Things like different parking ways, using methods that will increase the parking. The planning board has the ability to do certain things that could improve some of the areas where there are concerns. So there are mechanisms in place to address some of these things, even the preservation issue. There are some buildings in downtown that definitely should be landmarked, but there are other buildings that people want to save that are, while they're old, I believe that they shouldn't be landmarked. So these are the discussions we're going to have. But to talk about a blanket moratorium, and I think that these can be done without stopping the development, because you've been in the finance world. There's a window that opens up. You have to take advantage of it, because one morning you wake up and that window closes, and everything that's not completed runs into that problem of not being able to get the finance and complete them. So, you can't just stop in the middle. You send a bad message to developers, and you would send a bad message to the world that New Rochelle is now closed.
No, and more importantly, that New Rochelle breaks contracts without just cause.
Right.
Now, there are reasons for moratoriums that have to do with public health. There are reasons for moratoriums that have to do with where you've reached perhaps a certain plateau and the completement and honoring of existing agreements. But what seems to me, and this is for the sake of argument, but to be almost irresponsible, is to say, I said I wanted a motorboat with 3 propellers, and you built it, and now I don't want a 3rd propeller. Well, that's too late for that. You already commissioned the boat. So I'm not sure I know what's driving this. Do you have any sense of what's driving this? Everyone wants to reassess. Reassess is one thing. To see where we are as things are ongoing, because we have contractual obligations, I understand. But a moratorium, I do not.
Yeah. Well, I think that some of it is being pushed by people that are very concerned about the preservation of the history of New Rochelle. And
but wasn't the time for that, and I'm not taking umbrage with you, I'm taking umbrage with those folks, the time for that was during the hearings that led up to, and the discussions that led up to the agreements now signed and underway. Unless I'm nuts, look, and no one, you wouldn't be the first person to accuse me of that.
Well, I think that at that time these discussions were brought up. There were concerns about preservation. So this is something that's been going on from the beginning. I think that the drumbeat has gotten louder because people are seeing buildings coming down, and again, I look at the buildings that have come down so far, and I can't pinpoint one iconic building that has come down. I mean, there are buildings that I believe should be landmarked. The Lambden building on the corner of Division, the RKO building.
Yeah, I know the building well. Yes.
There's a number of buildings, but then you have to be very careful, because we landmarked a building 2 years ago, the old Carnegie Library.
Yes.
Down at the bottom, down toward West Main. And that building now has lost a good portion of its value. And the building is, landlord isn't going to be able to sell it. The building is deteriorating. If I was a landlord, I would feel the same way. Why put money into a building that has no value or very little value? So, sometimes you have to be careful what you wish for, because if the building doesn't have enough mass to it to allow a developer or an owner to create enough income to keep the building up, they're going to just, leave it alone, and it's going to deteriorate. And so, we have to look at that also. So there's a balancing act that has to be developed of trying to find the buildings that are number one, worthy of either a restoration or saving, and look at the other buildings that might have some sort of historical value, and maybe use components from those buildings in a new development. You can have a certain facade on it that you might be able to save pieces of and install them into the new building, either into a lobby or somewhere else in the building.
Sure.
And talk about the history of that building with a little item or plaque on the wall.
Now, Councilman, are there any concerns by these groups or by these advocates about buildings already under construction? Because they need to understand, it seems to me, that ship has sailed. Those ships have sailed.
Well, that's why I think that the drumbeat has gotten louder, is because people are seeing buildings coming down. And, again, some of it is driven by individual opinions of what's important and what is not important. I can have 5 people in a room that are in favor of preservation, and everybody would have either a favorite building or they would,
it's
want
funny
to
you
be
say
certain
that.
ones that would. Right.
No, the only reason I say that is I'm the only person on the planet, or am I the only person that thinks the library downtown is an eyesore? But we got murals in there and it's round. I find it to be. That place needs to be. Somebody should have built over that, but that's just me.
Well,
I'm a
I
city
can tell
kid.
you, back in the '70s, when that building was built, this conversation, if you're able to go into the archives and find newspapers from them, you will see articles and discussions and opinions from residents about that building. There were many people that thought it was too futuristic.
Really?
For the community, where, you have to remember, back in the '70s, New Rochelle had, what we had was a lot of old buildings, more of a New England look to New Rochelle.
Yeah.
And this building was thrown in there, and it looked, kind of modern in comparison to whatever we have, everything else we have here. So there were people that thought it didn't fit. So again, it's an opinion, and at the end of the day, opinions are opinions, and you have to make decisions, and if you have the majority, you make the decision to do what you feel is right.
Yes. Well, okay. Let's move on. We're talking with Al Tarantino, City Councilman from New Rochelle. You've got a new bunch of colleagues, a new look on the City Council. What will be the priorities heading into 2020?
Well, to continue with get this development moving forward. The concerns of, again, parking and things like that we have to address. The city manager, the agenda for next week is considered light in comparison to what we've had in the last number of months. But, I'm looking forward to listening to the other the new council members and find out what their priorities are, and hope that we can work together to keep continuing to move the city forward.
Okay, Al Tarantino, it is always a pleasure, sir. And what's your grandson's name?
Grayson.
Excuse
and we
me?
just put him to bed. He was making too much noise. He got
Grayson?
too excited when he heard Bob Marrone.
Well, you can't blame him. He's a fan even at a young age. You know what I'm thinking of reviving? Something I had about 10 years ago on my show. Remember when women would call... Excuse me a second. I got to lower that.
Yep.
That's another political figure on the phone, calling in right on time, I want to say, and that is Mr. Spano. I just hooked it on the chair. I may revive the Bobaholics Anonymous, where when people call, they can say, "Hi, I'm addicted to Bob," and then they can kind of explain why they're...
Well, he heard your voice and he started laughing.
Okay, well, no doubt. And he's my height. He and I see eye to eye. Al Tarantino, District 2.
Yeah, you and him could see eye to eye, right?
I knew you were going to say that. Thank you very, very much, Al Tarantino, everybody.
Bob.
We
Have a
are
great
going to
day.
be talking with the former county executive and political analyst, Andy Spano, in a moment, but we do have to share the weather with you one more time as we get into the bottom of the hour. It is 21 right now, getting up to 32, mostly sunny today and cold, an average of 32 throughout the day. Tonight, increasing clouds, a low of 26. Tomorrow, sprinkles in the morning, 48. The average temperature getting down to 45 at night. And then Saturday, we bring you 60-degree weather. Andy Spano will be golfing or jogging. And then on Sunday, he may well dress in his new bathing suit ensemble. Early rain, but then getting up to 62, maybe even 65. And the weather was brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhdc.com. And by the way, Jake, for later, we got a text from Anthony. He's really interested if you're going to give him an early sign. Might you at 9 o'clock of your lock of the week, or does he have to wait till tomorrow?
Titans.
He has to wait?
Tennessee Titans.
Say that again? Oh, it's going to be the Titans, Anthony, but we'll follow up on that at 9 o'clock when we talk with Bud Poliquin. Okay. one of my favorite guests, and I'm very honest about that. He obviously knows of what he speaks. He was the county executive here for 12 years. He had many other offices. He does work on the election commission right now in New York State. But we love him because he's a political analyst who gets it and also has a sense of humor about it. Please, without further ado, welcome Andy Spano. Good morning, County Exec. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
You know, when are you going to do it? I just saw Rob Astorino on television before. When are you going to be on TV? Radio we can't keep you contained in this venue. We need to have you on the big screen.
No, I tell you, over the years, I looked at my persona, and I'm much better on radio than I am on TV.
Okay, well, good, because we love having you on radio. We're going to start with the governor's speech last night. He's taking a lot of heat this morning, including from me, frankly, because he went to the play. He saw my, my American Cousin, and he didn't mention the shooting. Speaking of, he covered everything last night, and we're going to ask about Medicaid, but he didn't mention at all the fact that even members of the Democratic caucus want someone to speak about moderating this new law. Regarding
the cash bail law.
Yeah.
The cash bail law.
Why did they didn't mention it?
Look, I'm not defending him. I just look at this. He didn't mention it in his speech because he didn't want to. I don't know why he didn't mention it in his speech, but he mentioned it yesterday or the day before.
Yes, he did.
And he did. I mean, what's the problem? He's got to work this out with the legislature, and already you got the governor making a public comment on it. You've got the speaker making a public comment on it, and you've got the majority leader of the Senate making a public comment on it, all saying it has to be tweaked or changed a little.
Well, all I'm saying is it would have been nice if he just said what you just said, because it would have avoided a lot of unnecessary heat he got from all the newspapers this morning for not mentioning it. I mean, in some papers, it was the headline. The governor doesn't mention. I mean, I'm not alone in my...
Listen to me.
I always do.
When Christ walked on water...
Yes.
The papers the next day said Christ can't swim, right?
I never heard that one. I never heard that one before. All right, touche. Well done. All right.
Come on, everyone quotes the papers when it's appropriate for them.
All right,
and
fine.
then they don't, when it's not appropriate, they don't quote. They blast the papers. So, give me a break.
Well, can I say this in defense of Bob Marrone? Allow me to say this. When Christ didn't walk on water, everyone said he couldn't walk on water. All right, so let me move on to the next thing. I'm 0 for 1, but I'm driving.
No, listen. I think that there are political things he's got to take care of. He's got Bernie Sanders, and what's her name, Elizabeth
Warren.
She thinks this is the greatest thing since, or they both do, since chopped liver or whatever, sliced bread. And he's got to negotiate this with all Google groups. We call the good government groups.
Google.
All the Google groups. He's got to. He's got to negotiate with the Senate and let me tell you something. The concept behind it, I can tell you from experience, is real.
Oh yeah, but particularly, by the way, the part of it that says one great part of the law is that ADAs and can no longer hide facts they got through discovery from defense attorneys. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things. When the jail at the county is basically holds prisoners that are there for 1 year or less. Then it holds federal prisoners by contract, and then it holds state prisoners until they're convicted, and then it goes to state penitentiary. Mm-hmm. But what's left with us there? A lot of guys, 18, 19, 20, 21, sometimes first offenders, kids from backgrounds and so on. And if you got a few bucks, you can pay the bail and you be outside. Otherwise, you're inside. And the other thing is that And so if you have money, you do the same crime, you're outside. If you don't have money, you're inside. There's something wrong with that situation. The second thing is when you're inside, I could send you to Harvard for what we pay for a criminal inside.
Oh, I know. I know you
The
could.
cost of keeping a prisoner inside the jail is well, I don't know what it is right now, but when I was there, it was at least equal or more than Harvard.
Wow, that's a lot of money. Okay, speaking of money, I want to move on to another issue, Andy Spano. The governor's got a
No, I got to finish because I don't want people to think. I think that they should have the no bail situation and leave some discretion up to the judge.
Everybody agrees with what
I
you
think
just said.
that way. Yeah.
I knew you felt that way, and I'm glad you articulated it because otherwise they'd be calling Andy Spano.
I know.
Like that nut out in Seattle. Did you see that guy that said he wants there to be no police? If we gave everybody money, there'd be no crime. How would you like to? That guy needs to have his head examined. Unbelievable.
All right, let me tell you another story. I know you like stories.
I do like stories.
So when the economy goes up, and people have jobs, more specifically when people have jobs, okay, crime goes down, just goes down.
Yeah, of course it does.
That's a given. No, they have jobs, they go down. So one day I'm in Mount Vernon, and I'm talking to the Mount Vernon mayor, and he says, "Oh, look at this guy, Yonkers." He says he came out, crime is low. He's taking credit for all this thing like that. I'm gonna have my own press conference. So here he goes. He has a press conference on crime being low and all he's done and so on and so forth. So I go back to my office. I go to my communications. I said, check the crime statistics for the county. He checks them and they're way down. And I said, how about a press conference now on how I did all this and I got this? And meanwhile, none of us had any result. It was all based on the economy.
Of course. It's like every president takes credit for the stock market.
Yeah, right. Right.
That is a good story, Andy Spano. So then I can conclude and put out a headline tomorrow. Andy Spano says he had nothing to do with the crime statistics going down while he was county executive. Oh God, I love.
Well, actually the other big factor in crime, the minimizing crime, has been the technology.
Of course. Yeah, I'm afraid. I've been thinking of robbing a bank lately to fund my radio station, but I don't know how I'll get away with it. A camera will catch me. What am I going to have to wear a hazmat suit and run and walk here to do the crime? I'm going to leave like 5 miles so nobody can catch me on camera. I don't know how I'm going to do this crime. So, yeah, it is.
You mentioned that joke in China. Okay.
Yeah.
China has probably the most sophisticated facial recognition system in the United States and in the world.
This is good. You said, wait! I can't let that go. You just did a George Bush. China has the best facial recognition system in the United States, according to Andy Spano.
That would be the headline. That would be the headline, right?
Thank you, God.
There we go.
Go ahead, continue.
Now, if you have a cell phone, you can't have a cell phone without facial recognition anymore in China.
Okay.
All right. They give you 1,000 points in China, and now if you jaywalk, they know you jaywalked. You lose 2 points. If you do this, you can lose 1 point. If you curse at the premier, 3 points. And if you get below certain points, things begin to happen. Below a certain point, you're not allowed to travel anymore. Below another point, you're not allowed to get benefits anymore. This is the entire country, 1,400,000,000 people.
My God.
And listen to me. This is not an exaggeration, okay? Not an exaggeration. They just haven't completed it all yet.
Wow. And pretty soon they'll
So when you look at 1984 in 2084 now. I don't know if anyone even knows the relevance of that comment. You could get that and start looking at all the cameras we start putting up.
Well, it is getting crazy. I mean, even now, if you enable your phone to track you, okay, your friends, your boss, your missus can track wherever you go. And if they want to find out further and they're not sure, then they go to your Easy Pass and see what tolls you went through. We're not far away from that here anymore.
Well, I know someone that's doing that.
Doing what?
In a marriage.
Oh, okay. Oh, God, yeah. Of course. Yeah, people are doing it all the time. Heaven forbid that people should know where we go. We're talking with Andy Spano, former county executive, now political analyst. I'm concerned about money, as most people always are. $6 billion shortfall. And the governor, we had a guest on before saying that the way the charges for Medicaid here in Westchester County, et cetera, are excessive. We are one of those states in which the county has to bear some of the burden. It does look like we are going to get, and I'm not saying this for sure, I wanted your opinion, our county is going to be getting a bill from the state soon for more Medicaid.
Well, I was in the forefront of that fight.
I know.
So I can give you a little,
that's why
background
we
on it.
asked you.
They used to charge me 25%. Okay, state paid, feds paid 50, state paid 25, county paid 25. Most other states, state paid 50, feds paid 50. We didn't pay anything.
Right.
Right after 9/11, I got hit with two bills. One was the $40 million because of the pension system, and the second one was $18 million for Medicaid. This is the Medicaid bill you're talking about, by the way.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, $18 million for Medicaid. So I got so angry, because it comes out of the blue. You're managing your government, and all of a sudden these things come out of the blue. So I took $100,000 from my campaign account. I was not in an election. I talked it over with my people because I don't want to use county funds for this. And I'm allowed to use, for government purposes, I can use funds. It's all legal. And I did ads on TV against the state doing all this stuff with the money. I used to say, if we're children of the state, we have no constitutional law. I mean, they can change whatever they want to do to us. I used to say that we're children of the state, and what they do is child abuse. And those were the basis of the ads.
Wow.
So what happened was the other county executives got around me. It's Democrats and Republicans during the Republican administration, all the county executives. There were only 19 in the state. And they started the same thing in their counties. And we forced the state to bring it down from 25% to 3%.
Okay.
25, which is where it is right now. And that was a big move by the state, but we shouldn't have been paying anything. And every time they need money now, they're going to say, well, look, you were paying 25%. Now you're only paying 3%. You used to pay for the courts. Now you don't pay for the courts at all. We pay for the courts. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But anytime they need money, same thing with the social services. State feds paid 50%, state 25%, county 25%. For years. One day they just decided they needed more money, so they lowered our rates. They used to give us 25%.
Mm-hmm.
One year they decided only going to give us 24%. Now, for the general public, that sounds like nothing, but it's millions and millions of dollars. That's what they might do on this one. And I don't know how you get around that.
Yeah, I know. We had George Latimer on Monday, the current county executive, as you know, and obviously he's concerned about that, after his tax freeze he hopes for next year, et cetera. So how much of a difference, if they add another 1%, when we translate that to the levy, how much could we be talking about? I mean, I realize it's a generalization, of course, and that's a caveat I need to put out there. But
well, it varies from year to year, but at the county levy, $5 million equals 1% on the tax roll.
Okay.
So if you lose $10 million or $15 million, it's 3% on the tax roll. But that's just for that hit. That doesn't include all the other hits, that you're going to get.
Well, I don't know.
I told you what I think that this whole tax thing, and I'm not the only one saying this. You read any of the esoteric papers, nationwide. This whole focus on taxes and lowering taxes, etc., is bizarre, because that's part of what's causing the major problem with all the governments in the country. If you look at the hiring, we're back in a great economy, et cetera. The jobs are there, and so on and so forth. There's one sector of the economy that still hasn't replaced any jobs, hasn't replaced the jobs significantly, and that's government.
Is that right?
That's right.
That's very interesting to know that government jobs have not increased. Government still, though. And
No, they have not increased.
That's what I said.
They decreased significantly, and have not increased from the decrease significantly.
That's something to learn.
Decrease.
Listen, before you go, I wanted to get to some national issues. It's 8:52 here across the Sound Shore. It's 21 degrees. We're talking with Andy Spano, former county executive, now a political analyst. The president did what he did with Soleimani. And it appears that there was a lot of deep thinking in Iran. They retaliated without taking any lives, which was a smart, measured approach. What do you think of the president's speech following that, and where do you think we're headed with respect to this issue?
Well, this is not part of the DNA of the Mideast, to just say, okay, we did our piece. Please. First of all, they've said verbally they're not through. But they'll do it in a more stealth manner.
Oh, yes, of course. They'll be, and they'll use proxies.
And they'll just plan, and they'll make sure they get it done, just like 19 guys with plastic knives were able to bring down the World Trade Center. You just can't say they're not going to do anything. They have been embarrassed, hurt, in terms from their perspective, and humiliated, and they are not going to let it stand just that way. They are afraid of our power. They are afraid of they're very afraid of this guy, because he could do anything. He could do it. He wants to bomb 51 sites. He can do it himself.
Yeah, he can.
I think we've just got to be really on heightened alert as we go forward. And I'll tell you something. I'm a Democrat. I don't particularly like him, but I hope he's right.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I hope he's right.
I think a lot of people feel
I would rather be wrong in this particular case. But who knows? We got so many problems. Like, I'm reading a book now. Here's the book I'm reading: Stealth War: How China Took Over While America's Elite Slept. It's by General Spaulding.
Okay.
That's just China. Then you got Iran. Then you got North Korea. And so on and so forth. I wouldn't want his job.
No, I was going to say, I don't know why anybody...
You really need some more thoughtful approach to these problems.
Absolutely, you do. Okay, one other item I think we can get to. Now, the impeachment is kind of stalled. As you know, the Republicans have the votes. Mitch McConnell has the votes to, once they get the articles of impeachment, to do just a slam dunk and get this thing over with. Nancy Pelosi's holding out for witnesses, which she's probably not going to get. Why doesn't she just cut a deal, and maybe the answer's obvious, I just don't know it, to get Mr. Bolton to come in and testify before the Congress and then get on with it, because they know that the Republicans are not going to remove this president. Perhaps they shouldn't. And this is all about politics and optics now. Everybody knows the president did what he did, and Bolton's testimony would simply put them in a position to say, guess what, your plausible deniability is gone, but it's not going to change the outcome. So why not just go forward with this?
I'm going to put my neck out on this one.
Why not?
I predict she will send these things over within the very near future. Send over the articles of impeachment in her future. They will conduct a trial with the representatives of each side making their positions. Then they have to have a vote.
Okay.
On witnesses.
Yes.
And that vote will bring in witnesses.
So do you think that will happen?
Yeah, I think that will happen. I think we'll have witnesses. But initially what will happen is they'll go along with the Clinton rules, which made the presentation of the two sides. And when two sides are finished with their presentation, then the senators have a chance to ask questions. When that's all over, there will be a motion made to have witnesses, and on that motion, they will get 51 votes.
Okay, and that'll be that. Now, obviously, he's not going to be removed from office. One more question.
No.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I wanted to go to, I have never seen so many ads in my life as the former mayor of New York is putting out there. Now, some of the other people I talk to think, no, he knows at this point he's not probably going to get the nomination, but he still wants to militate against getting President Trump reelected. Do you think what he's doing is going to help and work, and do you think he has an honest chance at getting the nomination? And of course, we're talking about Mayor Bloomberg.
I think yes, he has an honest chance of getting to the election. I mean, the game plan and the scenario is still out there. It hasn't been, because he's at 7% now. That's being nowhere, coming from nowhere. I think his ads are excellent. And the bottom line for him is very simple. He's got the money. He's hitting the president in the ads. And if he's not the candidate, he's helped the whole situation. So he's got nothing to lose in this process.
Okay. Andy Spano, before we let you go, I want to once again wish you a happy new year and tell you how much I appreciate your participation in the program. And just for fun, are you a football fan at all?
Am I a football fan? Yeah, I'm a football fan.
Okay, because we've been doing this thing, Jets Picks of the Week. Jake, he's this guy, works here, and he's our football analyst. And we have a sponsored thing that we do where he makes picks every week. He's already gone forward early with his lock of the week, the Titans. How do you feel about that?
They're a really good team. I think they're coming on.
Okay.
But don't look at me, because all four of the teams I was rooting for over the weekend lost. So.
Weren't you the guy that told Custer, over that hill, I think they're friendly Indians? Didn't you make that bet?
Got great games, by the way. They're great games.
Yeah, they are. Andy Spano, thank you so much. You and your family have a wonderful New Year, and thanks for your time. Take care.
Take care.
And good luck with that China, the best ideas in the United States. God, I'm beginning to love that guy. This is just so much fun. Okay, we're going to take a break, and then I'm going to reach out to our next guest, share the weather with you, etc. And just a reminder, we're going to be talking in a few minutes with Bud Poliquin. He's in the Hall of Fame of Syracuse, writer, author, playoffs, Patriots, baseball. These are the things we're going to talk about. Baseball Hall of Fame, death of Syracuse basketball, although that'll always come back. Cheating in baseball, all kinds of things. We'll be back in just a minute with the weather and Bud Poliquin. Alrighty, let's take another look at the weather. I kind of like this music. We've got all kinds of new music coming your way shortly, too. This is Radio Westchester. It's Thursday, January 9, 2020. My goodness, where does the time go? We're heading into our long-form segment on Radio Westchester. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am he. Jake Schaefer's here. We're going to be double teaming in our conversation with our next guest. But first, the weather. It's been pretty consistent all day. It's still only 21 degrees as we pass through 9:01. Mostly sunny today, cold, an average of 32 degrees. Tonight, increasing clouds, though, but getting down to 26. And then it begins to warm up tomorrow. And warm up it will. First of all, some sprinkles in the morning, getting up to 48 at night, only dropping to 45 as the heat wave begins. Saturday, cloudy, 60 degrees. Jake will be wearing his Syracuse shorts. And Sunday, he may well be wearing his Speedo. It'll get up to 62 after a little rain in the morning, maybe even 65, but at night dropping to 35. And the weather, of course, is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. The top of the hour is also supported by Aging Issues Management, Aging Issues Radio. They did 2 shows last night. You can go to their website or ours and check them out. Particularly, they talked a great deal about some of the programs being offered for those of you who owe college debt. The one company will actually match payments that you make on your college debt. And this came as a shock last night. They will match payments if you pay down principal. The law firm of Payne & Con and Plug-in Virtual Reality support the top of the hour. So do Dominic Cigars, who will be with us tomorrow with Jake when we have Jake's football picks of the week, although he's already out early with one of them. He's a Titan man all the way, and we're going to be asking our next guest about that. And that segment is supported by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Padrons, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located on Boston Post Road in Larchmont. They're open 7 days. And we now prepare for our next guest and a special sports segment for you as we get headed into playoff weekend. First of all, Bud Poliquin, broadcaster, writer, author. He's in the Syracuse Hall of Fame for his work. We're going to be talking with him about the playoffs now first, but also about the Baseball Hall of Fame, death of Syracuse basketball. We got a lot of stuff on the menu, but a lot of these colleges are just like pro teams. They go in and out. There are some perennial powers, but not that many, a handful maybe. Cheating in baseball, and of course I have some hockey questions to ask him as well. Without further ado, and of course Jake's already in the saddle, please welcome Bud Poliquin. Good morning, Bud. How are you, sir?
Good morning, gentlemen, but I'm going to offer a little bit of advice.
Yes.
And that is, let's leave what you guys are off the air at 10, is that correct?
Yes.
Let's leave the hockey questions for about 10:05, okay?
Oh, so you don't know hockey, but you have the Crunch in your town. Great minor league.
I used to play hockey. Hey, I used to play hockey on a pond as a kid growing up in Connecticut.
Okay.
I used to play hockey on the old frozen pond out beyond the house. But my hockey acumen kind of begins and ends with Wayne Gretzky. So anything after or before before Gretzky, I might know Pierre Pilot, these kinds of people.
It's
but
Palat. He was pronounced Palat.
Palat. That's right. But no.
He's a Merlot drinker for sure. Go ahead.
Okay, but I used to think that as a Frenchman, it would be Pierre Pilot. I think you crazy Americans call him Pilat or whatever.
Oh, crazy
anyway.
Americans. All right. Anyway, Bud, welcome to the
let's
program.
Let's stay away from hockey.
Okay, but let's go. And I want Jake to join the conversation early. Of course, Jake Schaefer. Jake has gone out early. We got a text earlier from a listener that likes to follow Jake's picks. And he said, does Jake want to come out early for his lock of the week? Now, Jake, we're going to go over, and I'm going to ask Jake for you to lead this conversation, Jake, about what's coming up on Sunday. But I'd like Bud's reaction to your lock of the day. This is the lock of the week. Please, Jake.
I love the Tennessee Titans. I love the 9 points, and I love Lamar Jackson. I just would like to see him, in that white heat of the playoffs. What do you think, Bud?
Well, those are a lot of points, and after we saw what Derrick Henry did last week, I thought that was remarkable. He's not the same runner. He doesn't look the same, but I still kind of had some Earl Campbell moments as I was watching him run. And so, I tell you what, I don't know if it's a lock of the week, but I'd be very tempted to take 9 points.
9 points.
Again, with a guy like Jackson, I mean, Jackson's been great, but we haven't seen him at this level against that kind of a situation. So I might agree that that's a good pick. I don't agree that it's a lock. Is that
Okay.
wishy-washy enough for you? Is that wishy-washy enough for you?
Well,
He
are you,
likes wishy-washy.
What are you liking this weekend? Anyone?
Well, I like. I think Seattle probably is primed to pull what will be considered something of an upset, but I don't know why. I think the Packers, and I'm a Packer guy. I kind of like the Packers. I like the whole story of the little town and all that kind of deal. But that's got to be the most unimpressive. I won't say worst, but the most unimpressive 13-3 team we've seen in that league in a long time. So Russell Wilson is a tough out. And I think Green Bay is really not that good. So I'm going to take Seattle as my quote-unquote upset of the weekend. But I don't know that it will be a true upset.
And you get the 4 points.
Okay.
And I get 4 points.
Tilt your mic up a little bit, Jake. Get on the mic. Good. Okay, and you got the 4 points. What are the other games, Jake, that you want to talk with him about?
Well, everyone's going to be watching the Chiefs-Texans game. I think that's the highlight of the week. That'll be the CBS. That'll be the game, the ratings bonanza this week. And I don't think anyone cares about the Vikings-49ers games.
Why not?
I think everyone just assumes the 49ers are going to run away with it.
Really? What does Bud think?
Well, I probably would agree on the latter. I do think that San Francisco looks really, really good. They get the week off. They get to play at home. Everything's lined up for the 49ers to make a big run, and I just can't see the Vikings with Kirk Cousins, of all people, walking into San Francisco and upsetting the 49ers. So I would agree with Jake there. You know, Kansas City, Houston.
This game I like.
That could really be something because both of those quarterbacks are fairly amazing. And if J.J. Watt came out of that last game healthy, you know, him chasing after Mahomes might be kind of fun to watch. So I would probably agree that that's probably the most interesting game. And yet, the Packers and Seattle get the marquee time, you know, Sunday evening. So they get the marquee slot, although maybe the marquee game is Houston and Kansas City. So far, we're in pretty much agreement here. It's kind of boring, I think.
Wait, go back to the Texas Chiefs game. What's your pick on that one, Jake? Even though it's not official till tomorrow for Jake's picks, but what's your pick and what's the spread?
Well, that's a tough
Stay
one.
on that mic.
The Ravens, or I'm sorry, the Chiefs are favored by 9.5.
Wow.
And it's tough to go to Kansas City. That's a very good home field advantage.
I like Kansas City, but that is a big spread.
So I'll have to think about that one. I'll get back to you tomorrow when we make our picks official. But that's a tough one. That's a tough one to call.
What say you, handsome Bud?
Well, you know, again, it's really disappointing. I'm disappointing myself. Never mind the listeners. That I'm pretty much in agreement with Jake that I don't think Kansas City is going to lose the game, but I don't know if Kansas City is going to win by 9.5 points. These are a lot of points for playoffs. I mean, in theory, we're talking about the best players in the world gearing up for the greatest prize in sports, you know, the Super Bowl, and to think that some team is going to come up that short, you know, it's kind of, dare I say, a little bit insulting. So I might be inclined to take the points there myself.
Okay, so we shall see tomorrow. I want to move on to some more general stuff in football, which you guys will have at. And I want to start with what took place with the New York Giants. Now, of course, the Giants are saying, well, we kind of really wanted this guy all along. I'm not buying what they're selling. Were they ill-prepared, Bud? And why did such an iconic franchise not prepare better for the selection of a coach? Or is this guy Gettleman just less than competent? What say you? And what say you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, I'm not shying away from your question, but I too, from what limited knowledge I can claim to have on this issue, I'm stupefied that you go for a guy who, frankly, you know, across the NFL, your casual and even not so casual, the people who are above casual fans have never heard of this guy. To come out of the New England Patriots and everything that the Patriots have been, stand for in terms of quality, in terms of notoriety and celebrity, that we don't even know who this guy is by and large, shocks me. So yeah, I'm fairly surprised that they did not go with a bigger name. And if you're going to go to the Patriots, why don't you go for McDaniels? I mean, that's the guy that everybody thinks is the hot guy. So I like you. I'm stumped. I don't really get it. I don't get it. But I also would tell you that I don't, and I'm not, I'm not being a jerk here when I say this. I don't pretend to know much about what went into that decision. And so it's easier for me to sit back and say that's ridiculous. But I'm saying that without a whole lot of knowledge. So I'll just leave it that I'm stumped.
Okay, I think you just. What about you, Jake?
I'm the most surprised by Carolina paying Rule the amount of money that he got.
Is he worth it?
Who knows? What are the odds? When you come out of college, 7 out of 10 times you fail. Carolina, he's the 6th highest paid coach in the NFL now.
Who's the highest paid coach?
I would assume Belichick.
Everybody assumes it, but we don't know what his numbers
no one knows
are.
What his contract is, but I would assume it was
Okay,
Belichick.
that's a good segue. One of the and I'm saying the sort
by
of
the way,
Go ahead.
can I just jump in?
Yeah.
The rule, the number supposedly is if he meets all his high points of the contract, he's going to make $70 million over 7 years. And that's
$10 million
phenomenal.
for a coach. That's ridiculous.
That's phenomenal.
Hey,
I mean, that's just phenomenal.
although you know what, that's a real CEO kind of job when you're the coach of an NFL team. I sort of get that more than I do the $7 million a year that I know you don't follow hockey, but that the Leafs paid a guy. But I want to move on to something. Jake has been spreading rumors, and already one part of it, the coach involving the coach of the Patriots, but the fact that Mr. he thought that maybe he would be going Belichick to the Giants, and so that rumor ended.
Well, it might be a Trojan horse.
A Trojan
They
horse?
might have some kind of side agreement where Mr. Judge will be the assistant coach if Belichick doesn't like what Kraft decides with Brady. Maybe Belichick will go to the Giants. Judge will be the assistant head coach for a couple of years and then take over when Belichick decides
now, you
to
do
walk
realize, Bud, that he's wearing a tinfoil hat when he talks about
Say, get the hook. Get the hook on this guy.
My guest is Bud Poliquin, the Hall of Fame broadcaster and writer. Now, let's talk about the other half of the duo, Tom Brady. I think he's just going to stay. I mean, why leave? He's going to stay in with the Patriots. But again, our tinfoiled hat man thinks that he may well be headed to California. What say you, Bud?
Well, if he leaves the Patriots, which seems fairly preposterous, but if he leaves the Patriots, the only place I can see him going would be to Los Angeles, because that's where he lives, and he might have this concept of being LeBron, that I've won a title in New England, now I'm going to win a title in another town. I get to sleep in my own bed. I get to have the kids, wake up and play in the yard or whatever. He can do the family bit. He can say it's a family move. It's a challenge of Los Angeles. Blah blah blah. Some people have talked that he could go to Carolina. Some people have talked that he could go to Indianapolis. I mean, Tom Brady does not finish it out in Raleigh, in Charlotte, North Carolina. He doesn't finish it out in Indianapolis. He's either going to finish it in New England, where he belongs, or in Los Angeles, where he can be among the beautiful.
See, well, now I thought he has an apartment or a penthouse in Manhattan too. But what's his home base? Do we know? I mean, you're saying it's L.A., it's California.
Well, I think Giselle would have.
Well, his home in L.A. supposedly has a moat around it, quite literally. So I would say that any home that has a moat is probably your home base. I'm
going to go with that. Where did he grow up? Do we know who
I know he's a Michigan man in that regard. He went to the University of Michigan. Where did he grow up? I got Kalamazoo in my head, but of course I'm thinking Derek Jeter.
Okay. He's Jake's going to look that up for us as we continue. So, but now put your money, if you will, your figurative money where your mouth is. I say he stays with the Patriots.
I say the same thing because, again, as we're talking Jeter, we'll get to at some point, I'm sure. He's the Jeter of football. Can you see Jeter finishing it out with the Detroit Tigers or somebody? No. And I just don't see Brady finishing it out. I mean, some of us anyway in this show are old enough to remember, Johnny Unitas finishing it out with the Chargers. Is that what we want to see here? I don't really get it. So. I think he's staying with the Patriots.
Yeah, so do I. But by the way, Jake did his homework. He's from San Mateo, California. That is Tom
California.
Brady. And you gave us the segue, that segue by Bud Poliquin as we go through 916, the Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, I'm probably the only one of the three of us that while I love Derek Jeter, and while he does belong in the Hall of Fame, I never thought that he was quite the water walker that people said. But nonetheless, let's talk about the Baseball Hall of Fame. And what are your picks? And do you think that he goes in unanimously? That is the aforementioned.
Well, as of yesterday I did, but I've since done a little reading, and there are going to be it's only happened once, right, that somebody has gone in at 100%. And there must be a reason for that, and the reason being some of it is orchestration, that why would I vote for Jeter when I know he's going to get in? Let me vote for Tom, Dick, or Harry at the bottom of my ballot so I get this guy on my ballot. So, when you put that in there, that some people, it's not an anti-Jeter, it's a pro-Larry Walker or something, maybe that makes sense. But there will be a pocket of people say, look, if Aaron didn't get in at 100%, if Ruth didn't, if DiMaggio didn't, if Stan Musial didn't, blah, 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 how dare I think that somebody deserves it over them, so therefore I'm not going to vote for Jeter. So I think the easy thing is to say that, no, he won't go in at 100%, but anybody who doesn't vote for him, you got a lot of splaining to do. This is Ricky Ricardo territory. You'll have to do a lot of splaining if you don't put him on your ballot.
Would he be the same, if you will, icon if he grew up playing for the Seattle Mariners or the Milwaukee Brewers?
Now you're in my wheelhouse, because I'm going to get out of my lane just for a second on this one. I'm a big Frank Robinson guy. I thought Frank Robinson was the most underrated player maybe we've ever seen in baseball. Meanwhile, and this is where blasphemy comes in, and I'm not at all suggesting that Mickey Mantle wasn't all of that. But I've always told people that if you gave Frank Robinson an alliterative name and white skin and put him in New York, and put Mickey Mantle and called him, Johnny Smith, and put him in Cincinnati, I think Frank Robinson is it, and Mickey Mantle is Frank Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
So, to that end, I do think there's something to be said that if Derek Jeter had been a Mariner, would he have been closer to Edgar Martinez as he is now closer to Joe DiMaggio?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very good point. But I think you can say that about a lot of people. I think that if Tom Brady had played for the Detroit Lions his whole career, would he have been Tom Brady? I don't think so. And so, I think I agree with you. But I say this respectfully, again, very respectfully, so what? Because I think that argument can be made for a lot of people that, you're talking about team, coach, city, et cetera, that props up a reputation or a legend. Now, one guy who absolutely, has nothing to do with that is Henry Aaron. The guy played the bulk of his career in Milwaukee, Wisconsin,
Mm-hmm.
and he became all of that. So it's possible that you can become a big star without being a year in and year out champion playing in a mecca.
Okay.
So,
now let's.
But I like your question.
Well, let's look at Jeter. What makes, and this is not to be critical, but for the sake of listeners, people who don't follow baseball and know that we're giving an hour to sports on this kind of show. Why is Jeter so special? I mean, he was a winner. He was the captain of great teams, a very good hitter, a somewhat above average fielder, and a clutch ball player.
Handsome.
Did you hear Jake said handsome? Okay. As I said, the tinfoil he's got antenna on it now.
Mm-hmm.
But what makes him so special that he should go in on this level?
Well, first of all, his numbers are pretty darn good. I mean,
yeah, there they are.
He had something, he had almost 3,500 hits. He had almost 2,000 runs scored. He batted .310 over 20 years.
Well, then there you go.
So
That's what people
one,
want to know. Okay.
Yeah, number one, his numbers are fantastic, and he did it all playing, perhaps the most vital position on the field outside of pitcher, that is shortstop. So he had an extraordinary career, filled with numbers, filled with championships, all with one team playing the glamour position in the game. Outside of that, he was all that you just said. He was this captain. He was this gallant figure. He never, to our knowledge, was ever caught in any kind of scandal, not even a whiff of a scandal. So the guy was a stalwart citizen, devoted son of the parents. The little kid, so to speak, out of Kalamazoo, Michigan, goes to the big city and slays the city and slays the game. I really don't get, and I do not like the Yankees. I do not like the Yankees. But I don't know why people would have even a grudging, when it comes to Derek Jeter.
Okay.
And then this idea that people are talking about his defense, I would just ask you, okay, did he make the Omar Vizquel kinds of plays in the hole? Maybe not. But did you ever see him botch a routine ground ball? And that's what I want for my shortstop.
No.
I want my pitcher to throw ground balls to my shortstop. That's what I want. I want his pitches to end up as grounders to short, and we're going to win the game. And when the Yankee pitchers had batters roll out to short, the inning was over. I think Jeter was all of that. You're not going to find me dissenting in any way.
Okay, so what we know, Jake, any comments about Jeter before we see who else he would put on his ballot?
Definitely a Hall of Famer, but great player, but not an all-time. He's not Ken Griffey Jr., I don't think. But he's a great
my.
Well,
Oh, my.
Again, we're up. See, baseball is great. It's one of those games. None of us knows anything about football. Okay, I mean, let's face it. We don't know offensive line play. In basketball, they're so good we can't even identify. But who among us didn't play baseball?
Well, I'm glad you said that. Right.
Who among us doesn't think we know baseball as much as anybody else? And so I love talking baseball. I love arguing baseball. And I would say to the Jakes of the world who still have do yourself a favor. Get rid of the but. The guy was a great player. And yes, he was.
I just said he's a great player. He's not Ken Griffey Jr. Come on.
He is Ken Griffey Jr.
No.
He is.
Yeah. Jake, stay on the mic. Jake is still getting used to radio, and I have to remind him to stay on the mic because if they don't hear you, you could be a genius, and it doesn't matter. It is 9:23.
Yes.
We're having a fascinating conversation with Bud Poliquin, a Syracuse Hall of Famer, writer, author, broadcaster. Just a tremendous guest for us to have. Now let's go to Bud and see who else. So it's obvious that Jeter's your top dog this year. Who else would you vote for in the Hall of Fame? But keep in mind that there's some long lost guy perhaps that you think belongs in that didn't get there yet, and be sure to throw that person in as well. Who else do you think should go in this year? We know Jeter's going in and deserves to.
Oh, well, the guy that would be my pet project to get in the Hall of Fame. Excuse me, is Omar Vizquel.
Yes.
I think that Omar Vizquel was the Nureyev of baseball shortstops, and I just had if I could name my 9 guys who would be the most fun people to watch at the 9 positions, I would put Vizquel on my team at shortstop. I thought that first of all he was terrific. So it's not just that he was some sort of a magician out there. He was a very, very, very good baseball player. And guess what? The Hall of Fame is really the Hall of the very good, because if you look at some of those people in there, all I got to say to you is Rabbit Moranville, okay? So we've got people in there who are very good but not necessarily great. Omar Vizquel fits. And I remember one of the really cool things, I was in Cleveland for some reason, covering an Indians game for some reason, and before the game, and here's a pet peeve, by the way, they don't take infield practice before games, outfield practice before games. That's a disgrace. Talk about cheating as a disgrace. I think that's a disgrace. But Omar Vizquel was taking infield practice with Roberto Alomar, shortstop and second base for the Cleveland Indians. And I'm telling you what, the show they put on, it would be like imagining, if you could, say Pete Maravich and Meadowlark Lemon turning double plays.
Oh my!
I
bet.
The flips, the behind the back, the between the legs, the over the head. They take ground balls and they never even catch the ball. They deflect ground balls.
Why do you
each other.
Why do you think we don't give reverence, with the exception of Paul Blair and a couple of other players? Of course, back in the day, we had the Bobby Wines, who were good field no-hit players. Why don't we give more reverence to defense in baseball?
I don't know. That you talk about the MVP award. It's basically the MVP award goes to the best offensive player.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. I think that defense. People say baseball's boring, and I think, come on, really? You think so?
No, I don't think it's boring either.
You could take somebody out of the stands at any NBA game, and that person can imagine that, I could probably score a basket if you gave me 40 minutes out there. I probably would be able to score a basket. You think so? And then I think anybody in the stand says, put me in uniform and I could do a little square out. I could catch a pass from Brady. You could do a little square out, get me off the field. Anybody who thinks they could come out of the stands and play a game of baseball, to do anything in baseball is crazy. Mm-hmm. Think about that throw from shortstop.
I'm still amazed at it. And that's where I love Jeter. Yeah.
What's that? Nobody in the stadium, nobody can make that throw.
Mm-hmm.
But anybody in the stadium thinks, hey, I can throw in a three-pointer. Give me a little space, I can throw one in, I can knock it down. Nobody can make that throw. Nobody would be able to put a bat on a ball. If you're stepping in against God knows who, you're stepping in against Verlander. You think anybody in the stadium would even be able to foul the ball off?
No, I think I'm running to the. Well, I like to get those. I like to go to minor league baseball games and sit, and even down in the lowest levels when guys are only throwing 88 or 91, the ball is a blur. It's a bleeping blur.
That's right.
Oh.
You wouldn't tip it. You wouldn't get a foul tip. Mm-hmm. And so because baseball's such a great game and so much skill is needed, I don't know, defenses just sort of, they assume that, that ball is caught out there in the warning track. So what? What are you talking about? It was a great play.
Yeah, do you remember when
Bud,
when Paul Blair, after he got hit in the head, really wasn't a very good hitter anymore, but he made a major league living chasing fly balls.
Yeah, he sure did.
Along those lines, what do you think about Andrew Jones?
Well, Bobby Cox, who certainly would know more about baseball than me, although, guess what? This is where all of us think we know more than the next guy comes in. Bobby Cox tells the world that he's the greatest defensive center fielder ever
12 gold gloves.
And here's a guy who saw Willie Mays. So,
12 gold gloves, 434 home runs.
Yeah,
that's first ballot to me.
He's got some good numbers, but I guess I'm on Andrew Jones the way that Jake might be a little bit on Derek Jeter, in that I don't deny how good Andrew Jones was, but
12 gold.
I have a hard time saying Andrew Jones, Hall of Famer, So I don't know.
Well, what about Harold Baines?
Well, that was all Tony La Russa. That was a one-man band. There's one guy in America who thinks Harold Baines is a surefire Hall of Famer, and that's Tony La Russa. And then he twisted a few arms, and the next thing you know, Harold Baines is in the Hall of Fame because of the Veterans
Okay.
Committee, so.
Well, we're going to hit you with names again, but right now you're our guest, and we want from you. So right now we've got Omar Vizquel, Jeter. Who else are you putting in the Hall of Fame this year?
Well, it's harder. It's a little harder to defend this guy, but I think it's a thin ballot, frankly. So it's a little hard to defend this guy, but I like Jeff Kent.
Oh, that was my second choice.
Jeff Kent.
So I like Jeff Kent. And here's one that you guys are going to roll your eyes at. Again, very thin ballot. Is I think, and I'm not going to defend this guy terribly much, but I'm going to roll his name out. Scott Rowland, interesting fringe Hall of Famer, interesting fringe Hall of Fame career, very good player, Hall of Famer. I don't know, but the problem with your list here is that there are so many wretches or cheats,
wretches,
or, so many scalawags on this thing. You can't vote for Kurt Schilling. The guy's a Nazi, so you can't vote for Kurt Schilling.
You know what, though?
Well,
shouldn't his politics be... I know, but shouldn't politics be aside? He's a nut job.
No, not when you're talking Nazis, okay?
Okay.
When you're talking Nazis, no. The guy, come on, he's a Hitler freak. He's got all the Hitler paraphernalia. So,
all right, I'm going to give you that one. I want to back you up for a second, Bob Pollock.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Because one of the... No, don't be sorry. Because what I want you to do also is take a look at the old-timers list. Who are people that we've passed over that when the Old Timers Committee looks at it, says we really missed this boat? Do you have any favorites in that department?
Okay, well, here's a guy. First of all, I think the Ted Simmons induction is good. I like Ted Simmons, and I think if people say, "Wait, what?" Look him up. I mean, he's one of those guys who did get overlooked a bit, and I think that he's very worthy. Again, on tiers, he doesn't belong on the Henry Aaron Babe Ruth tier, but he certainly is above the Rabbit Moranville tier. So he's a Hall of Famer. But the guy who I think my pet project of the overlooked veterans. And again, you'll roll your eyes.
Maybe not.
Feel free. But I am a very big El Tiante guy. I think Louis Tiant.
Oh, my.
If you look at his numbers.
I love Tiant.
If you look at Louis Tiant's numbers, he had a fairly remarkable career. And what was great about Tiant, and they're not allowed to do it today, I know, but nevertheless, what was great about Tiant, he was allowed by the mores of the times to pitch himself out of jams. And so he would win. First of all, he had some tremendous ERAs. I mean, look at his ERAs, were fantastic. But he had games where he was allowed to not be in his top self and still be allowed to pitch long and win that game. And Joe Morgan used to say, and it was really one of the wisest things that he has said that I've heard about baseball. He says it's just as hard to win a game 7-6 as it is 2-1.
Oh God, yeah.
And Tiant was allowed, when he did slip, to stay on the mound to win that 7-6 game.
I miss that in baseball, Bud. If I may, I pitched.
Yeah, sure.
And there is an element to pitching that the public may not know. And like you said, we've all played baseball. You can win a game 8-7 on grit, on concentration, on competing for a pitcher. We don't let pitchers compete anymore.
Right. And it's really cool to see a pitcher win when he doesn't have his best stuff. I mean, who can't win, being facetious, who can't win when you're on? I want to see, can you win when you're off? And Louis Tiant was able to win when he was on and when he was off. And also, he was a great showman. And not so much gamesmanship, but showmanship. Yeah. I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Anybody else on the old? What about you, Jake?
What do you think about Munson and Mattingly?
Mattingly, yes. Munson, no. I think Munson's more of a legend because he was such a great leader, but and I think he just falls short of the Hall of Fame. I thought Mattingly got overlooked. What about you, Bud?
Well, I think so. The defense obviously is that he was he good enough long enough, Mattingly. Same with Munson. Was he good enough long enough? Different reasons why, of course, careers weren't as great and long as you would like to see of a Hall of Famer. But those are the questions, and honestly, I'm wishy-washy. I'm not so much into Munson. I would agree. Mattingly, if he got in, I certainly wouldn't. I wouldn't pitch a fit. But also, I can't really lead the charge for him either. By the way, another guy I put in there, and again, he fits into this Roland category. Lou Whitaker of the Detroit Tigers, I thought was really a fine player. And, there's a guy, if Lou Whitaker had played for the Yankees, Lou Whitaker is in the Hall of Fame, but he played for Detroit, and therefore he's going to struggle to get in. But I think Lou Whitaker is another one of those guys who you can really think about.
I think there are people in sports that, had they played in New York, there would be buildings, streets, and stadiums named after them. Could you imagine if Bob Gibson had played for the Yankees?
Oh, my God. Stan Musial. Musial.
Oh.
I mean, come on. Now, again, Gibson did get his due, and Musial did get his due. But you're right, they would have built bridges. They named bridges after Stan Musial.
You know what I always tell young people? Yeah. Do you know what I always tell young people to do? Go ahead and look at Bob Gibson's stats, and they're frightening.
Right.
1.15 ERA, 11 or 15 shutouts one year. That's sick. That's a term we use in hockey for highly skilled. It's ridiculous. And talk about compete. I think I'd rather take the day off, get the flu, than have to face that guy.
Well, how about, I think it was Yogi Berra, who said the year that he had a 1.12 ERA, I think he was 22-8.
Yeah.
And Gibbs, and I think Berra said something like, I understand how he won 22 games. What I don't understand is how he lost 8.
Yeah. Hey, hey, for a bit of humor, I got to go back. You mentioned something that Joe Morgan said. There's another line that he's famous for, and I have to be careful how I phrase it. And this is before we get into the cheating in baseball. He once said, and I quote, no, I can't quote it directly, and I think I have a good word for it. He used to say, "We don't lose in that mother flipping dome." That's when they didn't lose baseball. They always won, and they played in the old Astrodome. That one jumped off the page at me.
That's
we don't
right.
lose
That's
in
right.
that mother flipping dome. All right, we're talking with Bud Poliquin, and we're glad to have him for the entire hour. Syracuse Hall of Famer for his sports reporting and broadcasting, writer, author. Now, when we talk about cheating in baseball, let's get it right up there and talk about the current scandal that now seems to have spread to Boston, but also, since we can sort of tie this back to the Hall of Fame, the most famous cheating scandal having to do with Peds and whether or not any exception should be made, particularly in light of the fact that there are 140 people they know cheated and won't tell us. What about the current scandal, Bud? And Jake, of course, chime in as you wish.
Well, anybody who would even hint that this is okay or this is part of the game or let boys be boys or let the players sort it out, I mean, that's absurd. Something has to be done, and it's from where I sit, it's quote-unquote fairly easy to end this. Number one is you put extreme punishments out there. We could stop anything we want to stop if we put our heads to it. Now, I don't know about cancer or whatever, but these kinds of things, if you make the penalty so extreme, then I think people then adhere to the rules. The problem is that we don't have, obviously, any kind of deterrent here. So you have to talk about major fines, major suspensions, or dare I say, if you're not going to strip these titles from Houston and Boston, at least drape them in some sort of scarlet letter that, put a C, cheater. So number one, it's fixable. It's eminently fixable, except you have the spine to go ahead and fix it. And number two, technology would do it. Just let the catcher and the pitcher have some sort of electronic gizmo in their hats and their helmets, similar to football and coaches up in the box. You do that, now you don't have to deal. Nobody's stealing signals because you're communicating electronically.
But then again, I think going back to your former comment about punishment, and one thing that comes to mind, we're dealing with billionaires who have a lot of influence. And I'm feeling it here in New York, where now the press is reporting, not saying, there's a difference, reporting that Beltran's going to get not just a slap on the wrist. Hell no. I don't care if he plays in New York and he plays for a gazillionaire owner. He should be punished too if he knew about it. Why will he not be punished? And it's another slap in the face of the integrity of the game.
Well, that's right. I mean, it really does get to that now is this suddenly, are we looking at highlight out here? I mean, are these people on the take? Are they cheating? Are they holding back? Is this harness racing or is it baseball? And as long as you have people who not only are cheating, but everybody kind of wink, kind of knows, people who played for those teams did in fact go along with it, you've got a real problem. And unless you snuff it out, harshly and completely, why would anybody say it's literally on the up and up when it can't possibly be if one team is doing it and the other team isn't? If one team knows it's a curveball and the other team thinks it's a fastball, how is that a fair game?
Well, it's not a fair game. Jake, you want to weigh in on this? Because I have an opinion that's more damning, perhaps.
I think every team cheats. The thing that fascinates me the most is the whistleblowers. The Red Sox had 3 whistleblowers. The Astros had 1. To what is Garrett Cole going to come to the Yankees and just privately tell his teammates this is what's going on in Houston? Or does he go public? I'm fascinated by the idea of a whistleblower and outing a former team. Or
what do you say about that, Bud? That's an interesting point.
Well, I think the answer to that specifically is Cole, of course, will say everything he knows to his Yankee people now. You remember, he's the guy who, after they lost the 7th game, of the World Series to Washington this year, they went up to him in the locker room and said, "Hey, Garrett, it's time to go into the media room and talk to the media." And he says, "I'm no longer an employee of this team."
Yeah, he was wearing his agent's hat. He wasn't wearing
and
an
he's wearing
Astros
his
hat.
agent's hat. So this guy has no allegiance to the Houston Astros. So of course he'll blow him in if he can.
Although
of course
you
he'll
know
tell
what?
the Yankee teammates.
Since we've all been on teams in sports, I got to tell you what I have a problem with. Now, I think if you get caught cheating, you should be punished. But if you're on a ball club and you're a part of a team and you benefited from and or were a part of that cheating, you should keep your mouth shut. And that's just a human ethic. But if you all get caught, you should all go to the who's gal, whatever the punishment is. I have a little trouble with it because this isn't like in a corporation where people are stealing. This is sports. And if you really truly were part of a cheating scandal, you should keep your mouth shut until you get caught. But that's just me, because no one on your team is going to trust you anymore. You're not going to be able to play anywhere, and no one's going to tell you anything. You can't. I don't know.
Yeah, but see, this is I don't think stealing signs is cheating. By the way, I don't think a guy at the second base saying, "Hey, I think it's a curveball coming. I'm going to touch my knee."
Well, no,
and
neither
that'll
do
let
I.
you know.
Neither do I. But
that's just part of the game,
right?
Yeah, but this electronic stuff, this really goes beyond. I think you're being. I would disagree with you. I think
no, go ahead.
We're talking a mortal sin here versus the venial sin.
I like that analogy. I do agree with you, but I'm just saying, why would you? You should have ratted it out when it was happening. Maybe. Let me put it that way.
Well, you're right. If you had any serious backbone, you'd say, "Hey, fellas, we're cheating, and we can't cheat. This isn't right." I couldn't agree with you more there, but I don't think that because that's sort of prevalent that person should be allowed or understood as to why he wouldn't. I think, again, this is a difference. Mortal sin, venial sin.
Yeah, okay.
And
Speaking
I think in a
of
mortal
sin,
sin, you got to confess.
I've got a story for both of you guys that's apropos of this, and it goes back to my high school days. And this is a story, not a criticism, but it was very enlightening about sports. So there I am, 15, whatever I am a freshman in high school who gets cut from the basketball team. And I loved basketball at the time. But I was considered a smart player. I couldn't shoot for the love of it, could bring the ball up. They cut me, but they said, "We'd like you as a practice player, and B, how about being a manager? You're a smart guy." And the manager, as you know, keeps the book. And I went to a great Franciscan high school, wonderful school, great sports program. So I keep a book in the first game. And I noticed we had two black players. One who was all city, goes back to the days of Dean Meminger. His name was Gene Mumford. Great ball player, but a small center. Made it to college, made the minor pros, but because he was playing wrong position, wasn't going to make it, but great player. We also, his number was 24. We had another black player, Russ White, good ball player. His number was 14. And before the game started, the coach mentions to me, "Now remember, switch those fouls." And I didn't know what they meant. So after the game, I get called into the athletic office. And it's the head, a brother who used to run the athletic program at St. Francis College, calls me in. He says, "Bob, you didn't know what the coach meant, so we need to explain to you. The reason that Russ wears 14 is so that if Mumford gets a foul, if the guy from the other school isn't looking, you should switch it." And I was, and again, I was, I guess I had this little white hat on. I said, "What?" I said, "Here I am, a little Catholic boy in a Catholic school. You want me to cheat?" Right. And then, well, yeah, and that's part of the game. So I said, "Look, I can't do that." Well, that's how I felt at the time. And so, and then you get into the ethics of what is cheating. Because I said, "I tell you what, if I will not do that deliberately, but if the other team makes a mistake, I won't call them on it. How's that?" And that's what we agreed to do. And on and on. And even I remember one time I got accolades because I was doing a college game and a similar thing. And the guy I was with was an idiot from the other school. And we didn't have a third. Now, in the playoffs in college, you have a third independent official scorer. So a job I like because I could just be pure. But he missed fouls on Rafferty when he was a big-time player. The guy later went on to do television. And he wound up getting 8 fouls that day before they caught him. And the coach was patting me on the back. And I said, no, I didn't make any switches. I just didn't call the other guy. But my point is that in the highest levels of sports, and with people you'd think are totally for motherhood and against sin, I'm shocked at how much cheating would and could go on in sports. And that's my story about it. So just as background, does that surprise you at all, Bud?
It doesn't surprise me the back end of your story where there is so much cheating at the upper levels that it's hard to imagine. That I understand completely, and it's there, and it's I think almost all of us can imagine that does exist. But no, I am fairly shocked. I went to the Catholic schools myself growing up, and I'm fairly shocked that the good brother brought you in there and said, "Here's how we're going to do this." I think that's inexcusable. And I know the old expression, if you're not cheating, you're not trying hard enough, that kind of thing. And there's a difference. Okay, if I'm going for a rebound and I step on the next guy's foot so he can't jump for the rebound, okay, I've cheated, but, that's kind of a wink-wink thing. I don't know.
No, this was big-time stuff.
But when you're doing that kind of thing, there's no excusing that.
And it was hyper-competitive. I'll mention names. It was the years of Kevin Joyce and Dean Meminger and Jabbar and Gene Mumford and it was Cousy was coming to school to couch to scout O'Brien, who later went on to play for and coach the Celtics. So they considered it so competitive they got nuts.
Yeah. No, I'm a little bit of I've got a little Pollyanna in me,
too.
And I don't like. I mean, that's an outstanding story. I'm just sorry that you have to tell that story because you'd think as a 15-year-old kid at a Catholic school of all places, that there'd be a little more legitimacy placed on honesty.
Although
the commandments somewhere.
They did let me be honest, though. They did accept my compromise. I said I won't call it, but I won't do it. I wouldn't do it voluntarily. I want to move on to something else in the interest of time.
Sure.
Again, Bud Poliquin he's in the Syracuse Hall of Fame for his sports reporting, broadcasting, writer, author. And the man who we have to credit for producing this segment today, of course, our very own Jake Schaefer, put this on the list. The death of Syracuse basketball. And my premise when we started this hour was, well, of course, programs ebb and flow, inhale, exhale. Jake, why did you put this on the list?
How are they going to get a new coach? How are they going to get players to Syracuse?
Well, you got to start somewhere. Bud?
Well, first of all, there has been no ebbing and flowing at Syracuse. He's been, I think this is his 44th year, and now this is fairly amazing now. In 44 years, A, he's never had a losing record. That's number one. But B, in 44 years, he had, and I'm off the top of my head now, he had 1 year I know that they were 16-13.
Oh, this is a coach? Okay.
Boeheim.
Yeah, Boeheim, Jim Boeheim, the coach. I'm sorry. And other than that 16-13, until a couple of years ago, he had never won fewer than 20 games. So he had a stretch there. I'm rough numbers here, but roughly 39 out of 40 years he won 20 games or more, something like that. And only once did he dip down as low as 16, and he's never had a losing record. So there are no ebbs and flows in Syracuse. But now we are in an ebb. This team is 8-7 and 1-3 in the ACC. So there is real concern that we're going to see a losing record in Syracuse this year, which is like seeing the sun set in the east. It's like this is not normal.
No, but here's my point.
Jake is right to fret. Jake is right.
No,
to
he's
fret
fretting. But is it the death of basketball, or is it just sick and needs either a new doctor or some new medicine?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny. No, it's not the death.
Yeah, because my umbrage is with his metaphor: the death of it, or the decline, or the blink in the light.
It's ill. I'd say it's sick. It's ill, but you bring in the doctor, and we're going to get it back in a little bit. But here's the thing that's amazing. This is unimaginable to me. In the most recent study of the economics of college basketball. This is a staggering stat for you. Syracuse is number 3 in the country in monies generated by the basketball program. Number 3.
Yeah, you got that beautiful arena.
$31 million Syracuse generated in basketball in the most recent study. Louisville is number one. For the life of me, I can't place who number two is. But Syracuse is like $20 million ahead of the Gonzagas, and North Carolina even is way down there, believe it or not. So the Syracuse, this is a monster up here, a monster economically and a monster on-court achievement. So to be 8-7 is stop the presses kind of news in college basketball.
Okay, it is. But Jake, why are you so concerned about it? Because it is it's always been a wonderful program. It's one of the most noteworthy college sports towns in the country. I mean, Syracuse, the arena, it's huge. But you really are concerned.
I did not like when they left the Big East to go to the ACC. That didn't make any sense to me.
Get on the mic. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Stay on the mic.
Turn my mic up. Thank you. Bud, what did you think about them going to the ACC?
Well, I don't, I think that there's a little bit, and again, I may be wrong, but there may be a little bit of revisionist history there in that the Big East was breaking up. And the Big East that they left ended up having, Creighton in it and people like this. So if the Big East was the Big East was the Big East, then Syracuse wouldn't have left it and shouldn't have left it. And to leave the Big East and land in the ACC, from a basketball thing, you've gone from, heaven to, heaven. I mean, it was a great, if that's a landing spot, what a great landing spot. They're making way more money in the ACC. Instead of playing Georgetown, you're playing Duke. It's a wonderful thing. I agree. If the Big East was a Big East, they wouldn't have left it. They shouldn't have left it, but it wasn't, and they did, and I think it's worked out fairly well.
So as a business point of view, hey, you mentioned big schools. I thought Duke made a lot of money in their basketball program.
Well, I wish, I read the story 3 days ago, and I was stunned at how many of these big-name schools are way down there. Now, remember, Duke, as great as Duke is and as great as the donations are and the endorsements, they're playing in a facility that seats 7,000 people.
Yeah, that's
and Syracuse plays in a facility that has, they've had 35,000 people in there for basketball. So I think that plays a big part of it.
Yeah, that does. The more butts you can put in the seats. Okay, so we've answered that. Now I want to go back to one of my pet things. Two things and one of them affects your city, Bud. Okay. This move in baseball, which is totally business focused, to contract the minor leagues and redo it, may cost your city its AAA baseball team. What is your take on all of this?
Well, again, you may know more than I know. What I think I know is that there are 40 cities in America that would lose their minor league teams if Major League Baseball gets its way. However, as I understand it, and again, I'm here to be educated, those 40 teams are all low-level minor league teams. They're not AAA franchises. Ultimately, Syracuse might somehow connect the dots over 10 years. That might be a reason it could lose its franchise. But right now, they're trying to get rid of all the low A teams because they just don't think that it's yielding the kind of players that need to be yielded for that kind of money. From a business point of view, I get it entirely. As cold as that sounds, I get it entirely.
Actually, so did I, from a business point of view.
But from a public relations point of view, this is the American pastime, and you're going to go to 40, not 4. You're going to 40 towns in America and saying, we're pulling this team out of your town. Now, if you pulled the Chiefs, they're now the Mets, but if you pulled what we knew forever as the Chiefs from Syracuse, guess what? Syracuse may or may not blink. But if you pull the Burlington Bees out of Burlington, Iowa, Burlington, Iowa says, what have you done to us?
Yes.
So I think it's a horrible thing. There's so much money in baseball. Hey, fellas, you've had this system for 1,000 years.
Two things.
Just suck it up and keep them alive.
Two things why they should suck it up. Now, yes, from a business point of view, is it a good thing? Probably. But then, you know what? And I used to do this when I was an executive before my radio career. I used to, every once in a while you cut it, you give an employee a break. They've had a problem at home. You give them extra time off. You go take care of the kids. But then the minute you screwed up, they wanted to play by the book. And so I'd say, all right, now we're going to play by the book. Take away any antitrust exemptions that baseball has if they just want to make it on the business basis. And that is their sin. Because how dare you say it's better for business when you are being exempted from normal business regulations and practices?
Right.
How dare you? And that is what so infuriated me about it. And the other thing in baseball that is a disgrace, and this is where I can compare it to something I know well, hockey. A guy makes it to AAA baseball. He shouldn't have to be on food stamps. He's probably it's been his life for 15, 20 years, particularly if he's a veteran. Where in hockey, I don't know if you're aware of this, but your team, next time when you go to a Crunch game in that wonderful building there, that sells out a lot. The worst player there is making about $50,000. The good players are making 90 to 200, and the minor league veterans are making between 200 and 300. And of course, you got guys on major league salaries. Baseball doesn't do that. Even AAA players make $25,000 for the season. That's a disgrace. And all the way down the line, the players and the minors make, and then the lower level of hockey, they're not paid well either. But that's a disgrace. Baseball treats their minor league players like garbage and gets away with it.
Yeah. Well, now I'm going to sound like the old guy in the porch. I know that, but I mean, just from a human point of view.
Yeah.
You have enough money to pay.
Yeah.
Garrett Cole $300 million, but you don't have enough money to feed that shortstop down in AA. I mean, come on, what is wrong with you?
No,
people?
but that's my point. And if a sport like hockey, now again, hockey just seems it's so amenable to minor. I don't know why, really, to be honest. But the next level of hockey, the American Hockey League, to play people so well, and again, they get the attendance, they get the draw. A team like Syracuse does very well. There's a team out in San Diego draws 10,000 every. And the product is very good. But there's just something wrong with that baseball, the icon of sports, can't do that.
We are singing each other's choir here. I couldn't agree with you more.
One more thing.
And by the way, is that team in San Diego still called the Gulls?
Yes.
Are they still
They've
same?
been the
Yeah,
Gulls.
okay.
No matter who plays in San Diego gets called the Gulls. There are just some cities. There's a team 2 levels. No, they just moved up. There was a team 2 levels down in hockey where the
Couldn't
veterans
make it to 10:05.
No, I told you we're going to make it at 10:05. With a team in the lower level of hockey, the Colorado Eagles sold out for like 10 straight years.
Wow.
So, okay,
wow.
Here's my other thing. I need and it goes back to baseball, but I wanted to move on to get all of our great producers' topics here, and that is this. What about that 140 players that will never know because of the agreement with the Players Association that they know did PEDs that we'll never know? Because of that, how do we keep other people who we know did PEDs out of the Hall of Fame?
I don't know. Why is there air? I don't know. I don't have.
Why is that? Because I have to breathe, but Poliquin.
I mean, some people ask questions that are really good that I don't have, that none of us really have good answers for. I don't know. That's a great question, and that's the thing about baseball, and that's the thing about drug use. You just don't know. Mm-hmm. And if a handful does it, everybody nobody is above suspicion, and that's why I think the players themselves have to take so much of the blame here, in that. Because that guy in the corner over there who's on my team is on drugs and doing well and making money. Not only is he taking money out of my pocket, but he's making me among the dirty, because you are, you are who you hang out with, and I'm hanging around with drug users.
Yeah, but here's
it's
the
a
point.
bad thing.
Here's the extra part of my point. There are 140 ball players who they do know did it and won't tell us. See, that's the thing.
What I mean.
And so that is a problem. Although I have to be honest, I've never met an athlete that wouldn't take anything that would make them better. Very few.
Well, there's some truth to that, but also I would say that the idea that you will not identify the abusers gives haven to those abusers.
Absolutely.
You
And it
want
should.
people,
Jake?
you know.
I will say that Manny Ramirez, or Big Papi, David Ortiz, will skate into the Hall of Fame, and then the PED players will gradually start getting in.
And they're going to have to, as much as it's not right, until they out the other 140 that they know. In other words, it's a question of knowledge. If we don't know, that's one thing. But if we know, well, then it's fair game. Everybody should get in.
Yeah. That I really don't understand the legality of it, the morality of it, the ethics of it. If you know the person is a quote-unquote criminal, and in this case, that's what they are in the baseball world, and you say to them, I know he's a criminal, I know it's illegal activity, I know it's illegal, immoral, and fattening, and whatever else it is. If you're doing it, I know it, and I'm going to let you do it. Why wouldn't I do it? If I do it, I make $10 million a year. If I don't do it, I'm out of baseball, and no one's going to blow me in. It's a great business model. It's a great business plan. Why wouldn't I do this? Until you have punishment, and until you have shame, and until you have scarlet letters, I don't know why people who are questionable in their morality and ethics would not cheat. It's an invitation to cheat.
Bud Poliquin, it's no surprise to us here why you are in the Syracuse Hall of Fame. Where can people read you, listen to you, in addition to what you do here?
Well, now that's a good question. I'm a little bit right now. Johnny Carson when he retired and he kind of went off. Nobody ever heard from him again, right? So I'm kind of Johnny Carson these days.
Well, you know what? Now you're David Letterman, and you're starting to get more involved in it, and we love it.
So if people want to hear me, they got to tune into your show every couple of months. That's where they can hear me.
No, it's going to be more than that. We'll be in touch. We're going to get you on regularly if you will be so kind to do so. This has been wonderful for us. Jake, say goodbye to your colleague.
Happy New Year, Bud.
All right. Thanks a lot for having me, fellas. And
Okay.
Don't forget my number. I'd be happy to come on again.
Oh, you will hear from us sooner than you think. Thank you so much, Bud Poliquin. Great job. And this segment was produced by our own Jake Schaefer. Jake, thank you very much. Great job. Wonderful segment. And you want to tune in tomorrow when Jake, after this conversation, may well change his pick of the week, maybe even his lock of the week. But you won't know until tomorrow, until we cover Jake's football picks. Again, brought to you by our friends at Dominic Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Ortega Fuente, Patrons, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located at 204 Boston Post Road in Larchmont. Of course, this bottom of the hour is brought to you by the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. The Aging Issues Management and Aging Issues Radio. Remember to go on our website or go on theirs, Aging Issues Radio. Great 2 shows last night. The law firm of Pena and Kahn and Plug-in Virtual Reality. We want to thank today's guests, of course, Bud Poliquin, Andy Spano, Al Tarantino, John Bailey, Mayor Noam Bramson, Vince Russo, and of course, Jake himself. Thank you so much for listening. We're running a tad late, but boy, was it worth it. This is Radio Westchester, Marrone in the morning. I am Bob Marrone. We'll be back tomorrow at 6, and of course, tomorrow, Janelle Albritton will be with us. Damon Jones, who is the publisher of Black Westchester Magazine, will be joining us tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And our other sports guru, Steve Callis, joins us, and more. And, of course, don't forget Dr. Victor Sternberg, the longtime host of Politics and Your Health. For all of us here at the train station, we'll see you tomorrow.